things seem to have gone back. And it seemed that when, measures were kind of loosened around the country, people translated the releasing of these measures to mean that you didn't need to wear your mask anymore or sanitize or, maintain levels of hygiene. For some reason, people connected those two dots, and I think that has been a mistake.
But there's a dot that has always been consistent in all these matters, and it boils down to the relationship that the Mwananchi has with his government or his leaders. And it looks to me that many citizens do not believe the things their government tells them. And if they do, they cannot wait for an opportunity to go against it. Though I find that even as I say this, there's some fallacy in what I'm saying, and this is why I'm saying this. At the very beginning of the fight for COVID, people were compliant.
People were, excuse me, in the initial stages, people were. Well, but also it depends on which people. People in the urban areas, especially Nairobi, were to a large extent compliant.
Yes.
It was at the same period when we were getting those vox pops coming from other parts, where people were saying, there's nothing like Corona, this is just about COVID. This is just about getting money from the World Bank. Remember when we had this CEC from Makueni for health, who was telling us, he was going around the villages and people were telling him, you people, the government wants money, it's okay. Let the government get money. So there was a bit of compliance. There was a bit of believing. And the people who were believing were not believing the government. They were believing because they have access to information. They've seen what's happening elsewhere in the world. That was the fear. It is a fear because you've seen Italy. It's because you've seen China. Because you're seeing Spain.
UK.
In the UK. And
then
therefore
America.
people are fearing.
But also, Eric, think about it. There's a part of the citizenry that actually hopes and believes in the government. There's a part of them.
Yes.
It's like they believe, okay, we've had this problem, but
there is salvation.
If they say this, let's believe.
Let's do it.
Now, where the problem arises is that hope is always dashed again. That is where the problem arises. Just when they say, okay, let's give them another opportunity. Some stunt will be pulled that will amaze you.
Yeah.
And you'll wonder, surely.
Yeah. But going by what we keep saying, and actually when Njeri Okoh likes to point this out, that Kenyans live despite the government, then this should be a call for Kenyans to actually now start living despite the government. Know that there's COVID and take the measures personally. Take personal responsibility. Because everything else, so you know that if you fall sick, the government is not going to come to your aid. The government is not going to come and pick you. You're on your own. So avoid. Just like the WHO director was saying, this is about you assessing your own risks and making your decision.
Right.
It boils down to that, and it most certainly does. But then we cannot absolve the government from functions that are supposed to be theirs, that from a duty that they're supposed to perform. No. That would be, in my opinion, it would be committing a greater evil, a greater harm. Because already there is a clear indication of the disregard that very many of our leaders hold the citizenry in. Now, if we take the view that we are going to simply disregard them, what we're doing is we're simply going to increase that sense of impunity that they have.
Yep.
And these are people who must be brought to account. They must be made accountable. Because that sense of accountability or the absence of accountability is what brings about impunity.
This is it.
Yes. They don't feel they're accountable. You know this thing of, because the Constitution says so, that you think that the leaders think they are accountable to the citizenry. No, they don't.
They don't. They don't believe so.
No.
They don't believe so at all. 3 in 10 ICU patients are dying, according to the Ministry of Health. This is the 30%, rate in the ICUs. Already, we have scarcity of ICUs. So by the time that somebody gets into that ICU bed, then their chances of survival are
just 70%.
It would help tremendously if they explained to us. We understand COVID really helps speed up the process of people who had pre-existing conditions, but it would help if we understood some of these pre-existing conditions or what it is that took these people to the ICU in the first place. Because people have been going to the ICU long before COVID.
Yeah.
And it's not as though they stopped going to the ICU because of COVID. So there is COVID, yes, and there are hospitals that have isolated a portion of the ICU for COVID patients, and there's a portion that is actually meant for other patients who have other issues which have nothing to do with COVID. Yes, it would be good if they could segment these things and give us the details.
Yesterday, there was a story that was explaining the percentages. Those that have died of COVID, what other pre-existing condition did they have? You know, from the diabetes to hypertension to everything else. So there was that data in yesterday's story, and I think we can still get it somewhere. It's online, and it explains. So the people who came and tested positive for COVID-19 and those that ended up now dying, what other pre-existing condition did they have? Gives a bit of a breakdown on that.
You know, it's very odd about this issue of pre-existing conditions. You see, one of the things that the HIV virus did, because it attacked your immune system, it opened the sufferer to all manner of opportunistic diseases, which means even something you didn't have, you now had an opportunity to have it.
Yeah.
Okay? But here now you have a virus that ensures that if you already have one of those pre-existing conditions, from whatever source, that is what it leverages its effectiveness on. Yes.
That's it.
This isn't a good thing.
No, it isn't.
Dr. Amoth was actually explaining this. He says currently there are 36 patients in ICU, 18 on ventilatory support and 18 on oxygen. And he says since the beginning of COVID pandemic, 199 patients have passed through ICU, 90 have been discharged, 73 have died. So this puts a fatality at about 36%. And he says our outlook is very good. And of course, as a doctor, the more you manage a condition, the more you get better at it.
Actually, arguably, one could also say this. If you look at the progression of certain diseases, and I always go back to HIV because this one has been with us for the longest, and it is a pandemic, is that by the time those who champion health in such matters came to the point where they got to the point of calling it test and treat. See, it started off with if you have a viral load at certain capacity, then you actually don't need to be put on ARVs and so forth. Then they got to a point with time, 10, 15 years down the line, they said, no. So long as you test positive, we start treating you. And the reason was because they found out that, or rather research pointed to the fact that someone's chances of living a normal life were higher if you put them on ARVs as immediately as you possibly could. Now, if you look at this, look at COVID, what you're being told to do to avoid infection are really basic.
Yeah.
Wash your hands, keep this. There's nothing you're being told that you can't do. There's nothing that even a child cannot understand. Now, we ignore this.
Yeah,
completely.
Unfortunately. And looking at some other statistics that came out yesterday is that, even the thing as basic as wearing a mask, because we see that this has evolved over the last couple of months, that, somebody who has COVID, them wearing, and you don't even know, them wearing a mask, you essentially protect the other person by up to 90%. You who doesn't have it, and then could come into contact with somebody else, you protect yourself close to 100%. I mean, something as basic as that, which we can do. It actually takes nothing away from you. And this is one thing that you can look across cadres of society, whether you want to look at, the least wealthy, the most wealthy, everybody can do this. It can be done. Absolutely. We can all do this.
It can be done.
It's something that's doable. It's doable. Just quickly, the global numbers.
All right, so let's look at the United States. 3.5 million is where they are now. 545,077 with 139 cases. Cases continue to rise rapidly in the States. But let's look at Mexico. The highest number so far of cases in 7 hours. So we're probably looking at triple that number by the time this day is over. 7,051 since midnight. And of those, we have over 10% of those cases resulting in death. 836 deaths in Mexico. And it looks like now this is now when they're saying things have really started to get out of control because they're dealing with high numbers of cases, high numbers of death, and the health system also now is getting to a point where it's on its knees. Brazil at 1.9 million cases, just about to cross that 2 million case mark. And South Africa now is right after Spain. with 298,292 cases, almost 300,000 cases in South Africa. However, with 4,346 deaths. Last Friday, the deaths in South Africa were 2,897. Last Friday. The cases of death in South Africa have almost doubled in 4 days. So now this is a serious cause for concern.
And you've seen the videos coming out and showing how South Africans basically just went back into life as usual. But I was looking at those videos and wondering, okay, but this looks like how we've been living in this country.
In Kenya. So if that's an indication, then be ready for that here as well.
Yep.
It's basically what we're saying.
It really is getting scary.
Yeah.
On every new day. 16 minutes after 6, this is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We'd like you to read the newspaper with us, and we'll be looking at the newspaper headlines shortly. Just so you know how you can access the standard newspaper, just dial *550*2#. That's *550*2# on a mobile device. No need to worry about data bundles or anything else. Just do that. And if you have 20 shillings, at least 20 shillings worth of Safaricom airtime on your phone, you'll be able to read the paper because it's going to cost you only 20 bob worth of airtime. Good morning. Let's take a look at the weather shortly.
.24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
It's going to be a cloudy day in Nairobi today, currently at 13 degrees. We will see highs of 22 and lows of 13. Take a look into Njeri, where a sprinkling is already taking place. Cloudy conditions at 14 degrees. We'll see highs of 20 and lows of 13. And the rain likely to carry on through most parts of today. The clouds are also down in Nakuru at 13 degrees. Thunderstorms are forecasted for later with highs of 21 and lows of 12. In Eldoret, it's 12 degrees and thunderstorms have also been forecasted for the afternoon with highs of 19 and lows of 12. It's cloudy in Kisumu at 19 degrees. The chances of rain are quite high. Highs of 26 and lows of 19 will be experienced today. We'll take a look in Kakamega, where thunderstorms are also the order of the day for later with highs of 23 and lows of 15. All right, let's take a look at the coastal towns. In Malindi, it's light rain showers at 25 degrees, highs of 28 and lows of 24. And clear skies in Mombasa throughout the day, partly cloudy conditions with highs of 29 and lows of 24. Out of Kenya now, then into Kampala, it's mostly cloudy at 18 degrees, showers expected later with highs of 26 and lows of 18. Partly cloudy conditions in Dar es Salaam at 22 degrees. We'll see highs of 29 and lows of 22. All right, in Joburg, it's quite the frosty morning, already at -1 this morning. Clear skies, however, will go to a high of 14 and a low of -2. In Lagos this morning, it's clear skies at 24 degrees, highs of 28 and lows of 23. In Paris, cloudy conditions at 18 degrees will carry this way throughout the day, highs of 23 and lows of 16. In London, 14 degrees and clear skies, highs of 19 and lows of 14. And finally, still Tuesday night in New York, clouds mostly covering parts of the night sky. 26 degrees currently. When the sun does come up, 30 degrees the high and lows of 22.
Live streaming on www.spicefm.co.ke. Good morning if you're watching us on YouTube, Spice FM KE, on Facebook, Spice FM KE, as well as Twitter. Spice FM KE is where we live stream this show every morning. Already people have tuned in onto the digital platforms and they're watching in. Your good friend who comes from the same womb that you came from.
Wow.
The one in Yangon, Myanmar, Upper Tubama Market. She's online. Say good morning too.
Morning, Oogies.
Oh, that's her name.
Yeah.
Oogies. Noodle says hello. Let's take a look at the newspaper headlines this morning. What do you have?
Right. So I'm going to look at a story that's in the sidelines of this. She's only 12 but forced to marry twice. Subhead is Shame of a Nation. Authorities have rescued a Standard 6 pupil who had been forced to marry elderly men, not man, at Majimoto village in Narok South. Her first husband was 51 and her second was 35. So these stories now continue to jump out of the woodwork in terms of what's happening to young girls in the country. She's 12, and at 12, she tastes and quits 2 marriages all in a month. A 12-year-old girl has been rescued after she was married off to 2 men in a span of 1 month in Majimoto village in Narok South. The Standard caught up with Naisula, not her real name, yesterday at the Narok Children's Department offices after she was rescued from the second marriage, this time to a 35-year-old man. The Standard 6-year-old pupil, and I quote, "I did not know him before and I did not love him. I told my family I didn't want the man, but my father and the man could feed us, and that I would get married to him. But my father said, I beg your pardon, that the man could feed us and that I would get married to him." Her first marriage was to a 51-year-old man, and it lasted just over 2 weeks. Naisula aspires to be a doctor, but when she turned 12 a few weeks ago, her father married her off to this elderly man. He told her she was too old for school and forcefully married her off to the man that Naisula described as old. She was to be the second wife. Our father had forcefully married off my 2 elder sisters, and I was the only one remaining. When schools were closed, he planned to marry me off. Her plea is to be allowed to complete school, and this fell on deaf ears. Girls are born so that people can eat. All I want is to get my dowry, and this is what her father reportedly told her. She fled to a relative's house, but the father caught up with her before forcefully taking her to the old man. He had promised 4 cows for her dowry, but since the local administrators were monitoring the girl's father's movements, the handover was shelved to a later date. So the story goes on to give details of exactly what happened. And so when she left this 51-year-old man, the father now pushed her on to a 35-year-old.
I'm actually more concerned about what happened to the father. Was he jailed?
So what happened is that...
Was he arrested?
Not yet. They're looking for him because
there's things that need to happen just beyond, because we've tried this arrest and all that talk.
They've not arrested him. That's the answer to your question, though. Yeah.
Remember the Samburu woman rep at some point gave a talk.
Yes,
and she said, look, we need to look at this thing the way we ought to be more realistic about it. So first of all, these are cultural practices that have happened over very many years. And there are still people who are hung up on this. They're still practicing this. How do we ensure that this education continues until a man like this, the father, understands it? The 35-year-old, I'm not even concerned about the 51-year-old. The 35-year-old, the second husband, also understands and sees, okay, yeah, I don't need to accept to do this. Because this is about, like you keep talking about this, it's a culture. You're telling people to change from their culture, from what they've known, and you're telling them now, look at it differently. You have to have a different conversation. Arresting them and all makes it just go underground, and we've seen it.
For the longest time, literally all our African cultures
had this.
Yes. And there was value in a young girl, nubile, young girl being married off. But there's something that is often left out in this discussion. Some young girls were married off, but they were actually betrothed.
Yep.
So they actually went to that home to grow up.
Yep.
So essentially, they were the send around. The older women would send them around. They grew up.
But they were taken care of.
Yes, they were.
Yeah.
But they grew up. They were not wives. If you didn't know, you just think it's another child in the home. Okay? Now, what we're dealing here is with commerce.
This is beyond culture. This is different.
Because what is clear is that this is, if you talk about the culture, this seems to be a thought process that disregards women completely. As far as, if we were to believe what we're reading 100%, so long as the child is female, a tradable commodity.
Yep.
Not a person, not even your child, a tradable commodity.
But listen to what the father said. Girls are born so that people can eat. All I want to get is my dowry.
It is a thought process that for the longest time, many African men had. Again, that's why they didn't bother educating girls. They said, but why are you educating her and she's going to get married?
So the communities that stopped practicing this, what made them stop?
A lot of it had to do with their ascension into
Christianity.
Yes.
Right?
It's what put a serious halt to many of these
So
things.
there was that access to Christianity and also access to education that changed livelihoods and changed the way
Completely.
people are living.
Yes.
This has not happened in these pastoralist communities because it still happens in the country, in the pastoralist communities, the Ma
It's where
communities,
it's predominant.
and in northeastern community, the Somalis,
Samburu and also,
and then also you find in some communities like the Kuria, it's still rampant and it's still being practiced. That's why we even have an agency that deals with these things.
You have some non-pastoralist communities like the ones you find at the coast. Say among the Digo, the Druma.
That still are practicing
It's
this.
still practicing this.
Yeah.
But
This and FGM.
you pointed it out well, Eric. You pointed it out well because if you look at literacy rates in some of these communities, you will find some of the lowest we have in the country.
Yep.
Yes. So the understanding of some of these matters, if you look at the turn of events in many communities regarding what we call the girl child, is because it was soon realized this person is even more useful than the boy child.
Well, this is why fathers started to send their children to school in days of in older days, because they realized, okay, the first one went to school and they said, okay, this is what would actually happen when this girl goes to school. So it became a practice, and more began to send their girls to school because they realized the benefit, not just for her as an individual, but then for the family at large, because they realized, okay, this is actually something that we want to do. It doesn't mean that she can't get married, doesn't mean that she will not bear children, but what you have is an individual then whose profile would be raised.
But you know something, Nduh, for the longest time, I'm talking about Kenya, there are many men who would not marry a very educated woman. They felt this is a bit of a threat.
But now what do you hear?
You see, it is progress.
Exactly.
But still, there are people who will shy away. They will say no.
Absolutely.
And why? It's a carryover from what we're saying. Yes.
A lot more needs to be done. There are very many organizations. Even the government has an organization that is dealing in these communities, trying to fight FGM, trying to fight early childhood marriages. And yet we are still seeing this. So maybe they just need to sit back, change tack, review their strategy, and look at how to. They've tried all these things, working with the community.
Yeah, by virtue of the fact that we still see stories like this, it means it's still rampant.
It's still there.
You
see
Working with the community, there's some areas, there's some pockets where you see, okay, this has reduced, but it's not covering the entire region.
You know, the truly odd thing about these things is we may think that the grown-up boy child who is considered a man is the main culprit, but it's not the case.
Yeah,
No.
it's the mothers.
Yes.
It's the mothers.
Yeah.
It's the mothers.
So,
Especially when it comes to FGM, it's actually the women.
It's the women. It is the women, and that's once you go and hear what actually is being told, and for them, you can't be a woman. You can't sit amongst women, for example, if you've not been circumcised. So it's a big deal still for a lot of them.
Like I'm saying, so yeah, we may see a huge reaction here. This man, the father, and the two men may get arrested. They may face some charges here and there.
Eric, you have a very valid point. It will be an isolated incident, but it will not even make a dent in trying to resolve this problem, which clearly is a huge problem among certain communities in the country.
However, you may actually speak to these organizations that work there, and if they give you data, you may see there's been a huge improvement. We are not yet there, but there has been some improvement.
In the last 10 years, there has been, I think in the last 10 years, there's been major improvement. Even if you talk to the Lina Jabika Limos of today and the Priscilla Nyawaters who are working in those sectors, they have been able to realize that it has greatly reduced. However, it's going to take a little bit longer for them to get to the point whereby they see it's no longer a threat. But as we speak, it is a threat and a large one.
Indeed it is. 27 minutes to 7 o'clock. It's a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Looking at traffic shortly, and then we come back and look at more headlines. Interesting stories in the papers today.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
All right, let's take a look at the roads this morning. Nothing major happening at the moment. We're likely to see that it will build up a little bit on Thika Road, but right now it looks very clean and smooth all the way into the CBD. There's slight traffic on Jogo Road this morning, right around the Manyanja, right from Manyanja at the Donholm roundabout, but that'll take a short time to get out of. It is not too major at the moment. Mombasa Road, the fog is quite low on Mombasa Road this morning, so visibility then is poor, so you need to look at that, but it should build up, as we know, right around Cabanas, but that shouldn't be too terrible this morning. Let's take a look at it in a short while and see what it looks like. But most of the roads within the city are smooth, clear, all the way in and out of the CBD. Let's keep our eyes open. In case anything does pop up, let us know. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter.
Mombasa, it's 87.9 and Malindi, 97.7. Good morning, you coastal people. So, in the papers this morning, there's a story that's been given some prominence by both the Standard and the Nation, and this is about this revenue sharing formula from the counties. So, we had the Senate Majority Whip in the studio on Monday, and he was sounding very optimistic that senators were going to accept the proposal by the Finance Committee of the Senate, which was going to come and say, leave the formula as it is, but let's just change the start date. Apparently, those counties that are going to lose were feeling, whether you start today, whether you start next year, at some point we're going to lose, and we do not want it to go on record that we shall lose at any point. So the debate didn't even happen. They postponed that and decided, let's give ourselves some more time. The effect of this is that because there is no agreement on how much money is going to every county, there is no money that is going to go to any county.
Yes.
Yeah.
Until they agree on the formula, and then after that they go into what is called the CAB, the County Revenue Bill, Allocation of Revenue Bill. Then that is what determines how much each county gets. Until then, no money. It's going to be a standoff, this one.
But if I remember what the good senator from Muranga had actually said, this is what happens when you are trying to actually arrive at a consensus instead of ramming it down people's throats.
Yeah.
Because the number of counties that were pitching a fit, I think there were 19. Yes. So the majority agreed with it, clearly. But what is also of interest, if we're to go by what is being reported in the Standard, it wasn't just counties that are aligned to one particular political leaning. No.
Yep.
There are those who, it is reported, are ODM senators. NASA. So all I'm saying is that their complaints, I think, have to be heard and have to be given consideration.
And now this conversation moves now beyond the actuals of what's happening on the ground to political alignments.
Yes, it is.
Like you said. So it's the BBI, and is NASA going to be able to come and convince these counties that, you support us, and we, what's the word that the senator from Muranga was using?
Something I don't understand. For this thing to go through, is it a 2/3 majority vote, or must it be? I don't think there's no way it has to be.
It's a bill. Yeah, it's a bill. It's just majority. Yep.
But you see, then it means they're being considerate.
But they need a lot of consensus. They need quite a bit of consensus on this, because you see, the counties that appear to be losing are the ASAL counties. Vast, less population. The counties that were hoping that we're going to now benefit are the counties that are have serious
Dense
agricultural activity and dense population. And then there's the other conversation that's happening on all this. It's saying that Mount Kenya counties are going to gain. Mount Kenya counties are just a few. And then there are the other ones in the Rift Valley as well, which are going to gain. It's a conversation
it's taking a political turn.
Yes. completely.
And not a pleasant political.
It's not going down a good route. No. There should be some proper discussion on what exactly happens. Because I've always said, so if you give a county X amount of money to develop, because we must acknowledge and we must accept that there are counties that have been marginalized for long. And for that reason, those counties will require a lot more resources to bring them to par. As that is happening, however, at the same time, there are counties that, yes, have a lot more population and they have many more facilities like hospitals. Like now, I'm seeing an argument here by former Senator Bill Okoh, who was a former Finance Committee chairperson in the Senate. He's saying, look, the new formula is basically saying you shall get more money if you have hospitals, okay, because of health. Health is a factor. If you have hospitals, you've got the facilities, then you get more money. If you've got infrastructure, then you also get more money. If you've got a population, then you also get more money. But look at it this way. The reason why you have more, you're getting that money is because you have more hospitals. The reason why I'm not getting that money is because I don't have the hospitals, yet I need the money to build the hospitals.
To build the hospitals, right.
In short,
so
it isn't our fault that we don't have many hospitals. Yes.
Had we had the money to be able to develop, then we would be looking at a totally different situation. And then I might be at this place which, others are being favored for right now. So you're stuck in the middle. You're
stuck
damned
in the middle.
You're damned if you don't, because what are you going to do?
But there's also that silence by all these counties to acknowledge the first two formula. The first two formula were actually looking at this. They were saying it was not looking at the functions, it was looking at development. So for that purpose, for that reason, that's why those counties were getting an extra 1.9 billion.
Because they were not as developed as some of the other.
So the first two formulas dealt with that. Now this formula is now coming and saying, let's look at functions.
So are we saying that in the first two, then they should have, what they're complaining about that they don't have now, which is the reason why they may be edged out, had they done it in the first two sessions, as it were, then they would not be in the position in which they are now.
If you take
not
the view,
necessarily, they'd be at least in a better position. Are they?
I think the word is actually better because, you see, if you take the view that you need to catch up, that takes a long, long time.
Oh, sure it does. Yeah, sure. It would mean that they should have taken some steps towards development in those first two sessions.
You're talking about 1.9 billion shillings per year. So 2 times how many years of devolution? Since 2013, 6 years.
6.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of
How
money.
much money are we talking about that you've gotten extra more than the other counties?
Sure, and if we're just going to look at the construction of hospitals and all of this, we've done this before when we looked at the numbers and how much it would cost to make 100-bed capacity or to build a 100-bed capacity hospital in this country. We're not assuming that the materials are different, so we know how much it would cost.
But let me tell you something else which is also surprising and almost shocking. Huh? If you have to travel around this country, one of the things that would surprise you is just how many health facilities the national government had built over the years, but were not in use. Some neglected to the point where they're actually required to be demolished and rebuilt again. And some in some remote areas that you wouldn't even expect to find a health, but they exist.
They're there.
Yes. I know of situations in some counties where their problem was not the health facilities. They didn't know what to do with the health facilities they had. But they were there. Now, this again is a problem of what you had calling provincial headquarters. Because they tended to have development focused on them, disproportionate to other towns that may have existed in that very same province. And and remember, we had provinces for the longest time.
It's true. Let's see how this one plays out. It's going to be a long tussle.
That's the word I was looking for. It's going to be a long time because now, they're looking at, all right, at least you can get some work going, right? But now, stalemate. So this means nobody receives any money until this is sorted out.
Don't you think that this stalemate is valid?
It is.
Oh, sure. Look, 100%.
It's valid. From those who are complaining, there is some validity to what they're saying.
For sure.
For those that were hoping that we're going to benefit, there is also some validity to what they're saying.
This is why it's difficult, CT, because nobody's just blowing hot air. There's actually, they're justified in whatever they're clamoring for. That's why it's so difficult, because you can't fault anybody for saying, oh no, you're just trying to scuttle the process. You really can't point a finger and say you're just being difficult for being difficult's sake. That's where the difficulty is.
A tough one. It's going to be a tough one. Let's remind you about KPA's portal now. It's kpa.co.ke/Captain Cargo. KPA has come up with this portal with the realization that very many people do not know how KPA operates. So it appears, people just see as it's port, it's operation. If I need to do anything, I just need to have a clearing and forwarding agent. I need to have a shipping partner, a shipping agent, all those things. And you don't even know where to start, where to begin, where to end. Now with this portal, at least you get to know what happens. So even when you're engaging a CFA, whichever agent that you're dealing with, you'll be able to understand exactly what they're going to do for you.
Right, so today we look at vessel service processes and look at how that basically works. And all this information is right there. CT, your stuff is arrived yesterday and you were happy, no?
Actually, what I'm truly happy about is that with an efficient system, there are two things I can actually do. I can even pre-sell my product. That's number one. Number two, I have enough time to actually train people so that they actually have a clear understanding of how this thing works long before the product arrives.
Voila.
Yes, that is the benefit of an efficient system.
There you go. And imagine now you're able to track that even online here, and you're able to see where all of this is going. So you're able to plan accordingly, knowing that what you see online is actually what is happening or taking place in real life. It also lends to that you're able to plan and go ahead with it. So we'll be looking at some of the details of the vessel service processes today.
So now
and
we
exactly
do what?
how
Now we are
it works.
offloading CT's cargo after it has landed.
So now we're looking at now the vessel itself, and when it does dock, what exactly happens thereafter. So your shipping agent submits a notification of arrival. So now you know your stuff is here. So sorry, your stuff didn't actually get here, but it's here, okay? In your hands yet, but it is here. And KPA then
You're using the English language very liberally, aren't you?
I guess
It is
so.
here, but it's not
here.
Then
So
it's
for
not
the
in my
purposes
hands, but it's here.
For the purposes of this conversation, it's in Kenya, but not with you. All right. And so
the
now
vessel is approaching dock.
KPA has received this in form of what is a booking request to let you know that your precious cargo has arrived, and they submit this manifest to KRA. So before the vessel arrived, this information
paperwork
had already been submitted. Okay, and then the agent receives a vessel control number of the ship call and voyage online. It's great because it's online. And the notification details used to update 14 days list of vessel arrivals. So in advance of time, they're aware of who's coming in, what's on the manifest. You have a copy in line with what was paid at KRA, and then we go through the process, and then eventually when you'll be able to get it. But we'll look at those details today, which again are all available thanks to Captain Cargo.
kpa.co.ke/Captain KARGO. Good morning, 11 minutes to 7.
Spice FM. Malindi.
So before we talk about Charity Ngili and the skin of her teeth,
Wow.
shall we talk about Kenya Power?
Yeah, it seems to be quite a number of things happening in Kenya Power.
On page 11 of the Standard, 5 directors quit because of governance crisis, huge debts that have jolted that. The resignation of the 5 directors from cash-strapped Kenya Power has raised eyebrows, even as the state downplays their exit. Insiders at the power distributor have told the Standard that the walkout was precipitated by a fallout between the non-executive members of the board and their government counterparts. The government Ministry of Energy is denying these claims. So we know 5 that resigned are former nominated MPs Zipporah Kering, lawyers Adil Kawaja, Cairo Nduh, Wilson Mugenge, and Brenda Kokoi. Kawaja has also retired as a non-executive director at KCB Group and KCB Bank Limited, a position that he had occupied for 8 years from 2012. So, this was just too sudden. Non-executive directors out, you just left with the directors that represent the government and the chairman.
What happened?
What is this that's going on?
Yeah.
And, what is happening in
And I
this
know a major
particular
question
organization?
that's coming off, even Eric, as you continue to look at that, is that the question is being asked, how is it that Kenya Power is cash-strapped? Why the huge debts? What exactly is going
Did
on?
we not raise this question sometimes back when we were saying, well, it's a monopoly? Monopoly? Kenya? Ha!
I've also heard
There will
very
come
many
a time.
people who talk about how Kenya Power ends up in this. Government policy on rural electrification and government policy of saying that you're not going to pay for electrification to your house. So basically, it's Kenya Power that has footed all that bill. So there's entire capex.
But is it really true that you don't pay?
Yes.
No, you don't pay what you used to pay.
You don't pay what you used to pay. You just
but
pay
you still do pay.
heavily subsidized.
But it's actually, well, yes. The understanding is, and this came from the Kibaki time. No. The understanding is, look, why don't you incrementally increase what it is that it costs into the billing?
In the Kibaki times, people were actually paying a bit more. When Jubilee came in, there was also that political declaration as well. There are very many of those areas where people are not paying. Just get the power, it comes to your house, and you'll be paying a bill.
Where was I when this was happening?
You were not in those far-flung areas, unfortunately. So those that say, okay, that took up a lot of money. And then you then realize that the cost of power is not so cheap. So many of those households that have been connected are not able to pay the power bills. So there's connection and there's no consumption.
Yeah, but Eric, I understand that. But even as all this was happening, Kenya Power was still collecting money. You see, there's also been complaints about this prepayment system that Kenya Power introduced.
Yep.
There's been, should we say, suggestions and allegations that there was some hanky-panky going on.
Hanky-panky is a nice way to put it.
Yes.
Very polite.
Yes.
Actually.
But also, in that time, there have always been complaints from consumers that Kenya Power just seems to, again, willy-nilly, just keep increasing their rates. So even as you say that there is this supposed imbalance where there are people who are...
Again, a misconception.
Yes.
The billing is actually predetermined by the Energy
Regulatory
and Petroleum
Authority.
Regulatory Authority.
Yeah.
The tariff.
You know something? Kenya Power can twist and turn and twirl on the
They
head.
can call it whatever they want.
As far as I'm concerned.
Call it a unicorn if you
It
must,
doesn't
or
matter.
two-headed
Call
dinosaur.
it
We
whatever
don't
you
care.
want to call it.
It's Kenya Power that's
It's
billing
Kenya
you too
Power.
much.
I
It
pay to
isn't-
Kenya
it-
Power. I
yes.
pay the money. My bill
This
comes from
Energy
Kenya Power.
Consumption
The
Commission,
token
whatever
comes
you
from
call it.
Kenya Power.
That's a totally
That
different kettle of fish.
authority can have a sip for a moment.
Tell me, when is it that you've had this experience of enjoying a reduction in your power bills from Kenya Power? When?
From who? From Kenya Power.
Even before this Consumption Commission came into being.
Stop consuming, you'll see a reduction.
Oh, get out of
No,
here. You're
actually,
thinking-
Eric, I'm glad you mentioned that is actually the problem. Even if you don't consume,
still charging you.
no,
Somehow.
charge you. You
Somehow.
actually want to ask, did we attach this house to some factory or some manufacturing plant nearby.
And when you make that query,
Yes.
you make that query to the same power authority.
Yes.
And what do they tell you?
Pay first.
Pay first, and then we'll sort out this anomaly.
And if you don't pay, we'll disconnect.
Yep.
So, Kenya Power doesn't have sympathizers. I'm definitely not one of their sympathizers. No.
Whatever is happening to them, Sharia.
They have not been consumer friendly. They haven't. You have a monopoly. Okay? Your competition may be solar, and it isn't really much of a competition. Okay? The other competition is GECO, not much of a competition. And then gas. Again, not much. Sorry.
Then you want to come and say, cry my beloved country. Sorry. It can't
No.
happen. Not here. Not now.
Not
And
with
then you
Kenya
want to even
Power.
come and tell us on top of that
Look
that
for
you
another
don't have money.
government. Look for another government
That
corporation.
you don't have
chief.
money and then you're owing. And you've been consuming all by
We
yourself.
need Kenya Power on this hot seat,
Yes, for
so that we
sure.
can hear from them, from the horse's mouth, and let them tell us exactly what's happening at Kenya Power.
With all of them resigning all over the place, where are we going to find them?
Manager, the management. Remember, we had the same kind of issues and misconceptions about Kenya Pipeline.
We actually didn't have.
And then you
this-
get information and you start understanding, okay, so this is where the situation was, and this is happening now to
Yes.
change that
Eric,
situation.
we didn't have misconceptions. What we were saying about Kenya Pipeline then was not false. What we didn't understand were the changes that had taken place.
Yep.
Yes. And which were positive.
So some things are historical, and you still don't know
Brother,
that things are changing
pull anything that you want, okay?
out of the hat.
We are not well, I'm not budging from my position, so you just call it historical. Call it whatever you wish to call it.
Let's get to the top of the hour, City. Today's proverb.
Today's proverb is actually a Maasai proverb. It's a very simple one. The night has ears.
The night has ears.
It has ears.
Okay. Indeed. Keep it right here. This is a situation. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Shortly, we'll also be on KTN Home, and we'll be speaking to the CAS in the Ministry of Education, who's here with us. We'll do that introduction shortly. This is a situation. It's Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting from Nairobi on 94.4. We're in Mombasa on 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, Nakuru 96.0, 96.7 in Eldoret, Nyeri 90.9, and Malindi 97.7. Also live streaming on www.spicefm.co.ke and SpiceFMKE on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Good morning. It's 7 o'clock.
Well, all right. Let's take a look at what's the roads are looking like right now. Jogo Road is bumper to bumper for some reason today. Don't understand why that would be different from yesterday, but all right. We'll take a look at that. We know that there were demolitions that were happening at the Gikomba market yesterday. We don't know if there's a spillover from that this morning, but we'll take a look and see what could be the cause of that. It's moving very slowly into the CBD via the City Stadium roundabout. Hopefully that'll open up in a short while. All right. Thika Road inbound today also has become a bumper to bumper situation. All the way far back as Safari Park Hotel. It's slowed down quite some. Hopefully that'll open up. We are now entering into traffic hour officially. Mombasa Road, all the way from the SGR towards General Motors, moving very slowly this morning and likely to stay that way for some time. So it's going to be patience that is needed this morning. All right, in industrial area, Lunga Road from Donholm has been closed. No prior information, unfortunately. So if you're approaching that area, you're going to have to turn around. I'm so sorry on behalf of the Roads Authority for not letting you know about that in good time. Anything else? Not for now. We'll let you know more as we see it. Spice FM KE. Also, if you see something we should know about, let's help others as well as we help ourselves as well.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place
It's
for
Kenya's
hard
biggest
truths.
conversation. This is a Situation Room on Spice FM, broadcasting from Nairobi, 94.4. We're in Mombasa, 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, Eldoret, 96.7, Njeri, 90.9, and Malindi, we're on 97.7. We live stream this show every morning on www.spicefm.co.ke. We're also on social media handles. If you go to Facebook, you'll watch us on Spice FM KE. You can also watch us on YouTube on Spice FM KE, as well as Facebook, Spice FM KE, and Twitter, Spice FM KE. So let's talk about education this morning, okay? And also talk about youth. Yesterday, we had a great lengthy conversation on the place of youth in governance in this country, and we had some guest hosts in the show, and we were discussing what the youth are doing, and we even mentioned that the president recently appointed a number of youthful persons into his government to a high position, a position of assistant minister, a chief administrative secretary. One of them is now joining us in the studio this morning. His name is Zach Kenodia. He's the CAS in the Ministry of Education. Good morning, Zach.
Good morning, Eric.
Good to see you. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you very much. And good morning to Nduh and City.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So, Zach, CAS is assistant minister, isn't it?
Well, in the old structure, that is where it would fit in terms of hierarchy in government. But as you know, there's no such position in the Constitution in terms of designation. But that is where it would fit.
But
Had we to fit it
in
the
terms of
structure.
function?
It has its place in Article 131 as structured by the Public Service Commission through the advice of the Commission to His Excellency the President.
Which means you are an assistant minister.
We are assistant ministers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Great.
City.
Now that the ground has been set.
So what do you do? What's your
Uh,
8 to 5 like? Okay. Does it end at 5 or does it end
Well,
at
well,
midnight?
good question. Good thing and bad thing is that now it is not yet 8, so I'm still working. And I'll still be working after 5.
Yeah.
Our work to the service, rather, our work is a service to the people. And it has no timeline, especially at the level in government where we are, because we can't be restricted to serving people by the timelines as set by the clock. So you will find us working anytime, out of town, in town, out of the country, within the country, as duty calls. Yes.
Okay, today is World Youth Skills Day. It's the 15th day of July. It's a World Youth Skills Day. We have a youthful person who's here. And, talking about the skills that are there in the government. What is it that you've brought to this government?
Thank you. First of all, I want to answer a question I haven't answered by asking,
What do you do? Yes.
First of all, our constitutional mandate is counsel to the president and the cabinet secretary, where we are. I should be advising two people, the cabinet secretary and the president. That is what I should do every single day on what is good for government and for the people. That one involves a lot of... I had CT introduced as a researcher, and that one excites me because there cannot be good governance without good data and good research undertaken by institutions that are mandated to do so. And therefore, we work closely with such institutions to be able to give the president and the CS the very best advice, including the one we gave recently of closing down basic institutions.
So that was you.
That is us. And trying to open up the tertiary institutions, although people have different views about whether should we have closed down or that's not the ambit of our discussion this morning. Let me begin by saying what we have brought in government. First of all, we have brought the age. I had you introduce my person. So we brought the youth in government. I am a youth by all means in terms of constitutional age of youth and also the mind. And by the way, political youthfulness in Africa is different from what we know as a youth. Because when I was in the university, I remember our teacher-in-law would tell us that the presidential age in Africa is 60. That's a youthful man. That's a man who can now lead people.
Yep.
And we did an average of Mahatma Mohamad, who is the Prime Minister of Malaysia, and the youngest one, who was by that time and Madagascar president, who was 39. So the average was around 60. Yeah. So 91 and 39, somewhere around there. So I'm excited to be here this morning. Our work in government basically has been, first of all, there has been a huge outcry against the president's first term and part of his second term, that positions of influence were going to very old people, and they were named. I'm not going to do it here. And there was a lot of backlash against his government that surely we have to get white hair for us to be recognized as people who can bring influence. And I remember a lot of outcry. But then one morning, the president wakes up 14th of January 2020, and you know what? He names a couple of young people. I think we were 6 who are under 30, who are under 40. Let me say under 40. Maybe under 35 would be 3 or 2. Myself and the CS for ICT and one more. I think under 35 would be 3. Then under 40 were 6 who were brought straight to government to offer the youthfulness, the mind, the passion, the commitment. And above all, let me tell you, young people felt that at least they can see their face in the table of influence. And I could say it has borne fruit. It is still a long struggle for young people to feel totally included in leadership in this country, because, as you know, they are 70%, and they would want to be holding key and critical sectors of economy. But as the academician will tell us here, some of these jobs would require experience and total learning of the systems and how they work.
How do you get this experience?
We are now getting where we are. Actually, the president, if you remember in our appointment, said he's bringing us now to learn so that we are actually, he called us trainee ministers. We are here to learn more. And that's why we are sandwiched between the principal secretaries and the cabinet secretaries. Because you're supposed now to synergize the two and know how governments are run. And that is exactly what we are doing. I see young people trying to join boards of management and state agencies as senior director. And now that I used to agitate for the same, but now that I'm in, I can see it would be disastrous to place a younger person who has no experience in terms of government in such positions. And that is why the president, in his wisdom, crafted the internship program, which is now placing over 12,000 young people in interns, as interns in government, various government parastatus, all the way from State House to the very small state agencies.
So you can see how that would work, Zach.
Yeah.
Okay, so now, but there are lots of youth who are maybe on the periphery who are saying, well, even if we get into this management trainee program, as it were, that our job would be to fetch tea and to, run a letter from one office to another. That would be... And what we are trying to do is learn. So if that would happen at government level, is that necessarily a bad thing? Or is it still, at least you're in the door, then being able to learn? How would you now be able to describe that situation?
First of all, Nduh, I would want to say young people have all the reasons to agitate. And nobody should block their thinking in expressing their pain, their wishes, and sometimes their fancies, I would say. I remember the front runner for presidency in 2016 in America, the lady Clinton, was serving tea in 1969 to the Democratic Committee, National Democratic Committee. And she said that she had left university and she volunteered in the party, and the best she got was to serve tea. And
she
to
took it.
move, and she accepted. Because through it, there are things you hear, these men discussing, these ladies discussing in the table of power. Then over time, they tell you, move this file and there. Then the following day, you're told, read through the file and tell us if you think it could reflect the thinking of the young people out there. So over time, I would say, perhaps something must begin somewhere. Young people must begin somewhere, because if you have not, something is always better than nothing. We say, I had City mention a proverb in was it Masai, that night has ears. For us where I come from, we say night has legs. Yeah, that's what people say in my language, and both are very deep wisdoms.
Yes,
we say something is always better than nothing.
Right.
If you're at the periphery, as you say, and you want to zero in at the epicenter where things are run, it has to begin somewhere. And if that means you're pushing files, you are taking files from point A to another point, regardless of your qualification and competence. Because, youth have power, youth has energy, youth has intellect, especially in our time, because we have gone to school and accepted learning. Yet, we are not at the center. It has to begin somewhere. And this is why I think these interns who are placed in government, parastatus, we call them sagas, semi-autonomous government agencies, just be there. And for those who are determined to get at the center, this one is somewhere to begin. Okay. Nobody will come from behind and just jump you and get at the center.
And give you the crown immediately.
No, it is not. It is not given. It is taken over time. I encourage young people. I remember I was training them at Kasarani. Then I was not in government, but I was passionate enough to go and tell them how to manage themselves, because I could not tell them about government. I wasn't in. And I asked them to at least maintain their reputation and be humble enough to learn. So that, tomorrow we say they are the next set of leadership. Wherever you are, whether that is a CEO whom you are placed under or a director of a department, that is where you begin and get in. So I encourage them. I have seen the Public Service Commission is also bringing 5,000 more. Let them come, as many as are possible to come. In our time, at least, there were no such opportunities. When we left universities, the government was not offering internship opportunities. And they are paid. Let me tell you, Nduh and Eric, City, if you are paid as a young person who has no responsibilities of family, because these are very young people who left college, and you are paid 25,000, it should be something to begin with. 25,000, it's not a lot of money for us, at least here, when we think about it. But for a person who has nothing to show except academic certificate, university academic certificate.
And no experience.
And
no work experience.
At all.
That is something to show.
And they are doing 18 months. After 18 months, today, we are grappling with aging workforce in government.
Right.
So these are the people I tell them, if you are grappling with the aging workforce, and by December, more than 26,000 people will be retiring in government. So where are you going to get these young people? We are the people.
There's a pool.
Let us learn and hope that we can be. Don't say, then we'll be dropped, because that's what many young people say. We'll be dropped after 18 months, so what? Where are we going? Just grab it and move on. Who knows? Even for us, we don't know where we'll be tomorrow. Nobody
take
knows
your opportunity
where
right now,
will be.
basically, and run with it. Right?
Exactly. They should take it.
Let's talk about what I see that you're focusing on a lot in today, World Youth Skills Day. You're talking about a lot of TVET and looking at the expansion of TVET as an side of education.
Yes.
How is that going in terms of the uptake of TVET by the youth specifically?
Yes.
Remember, the mindset is go to primary, go to a good secondary school, go to university,
Exactly.
get a degree.
I want to pick it from there and tell you that was the greatest tragedy that happened over the last 10 years from 2003 to 2013 because there was an overemphasis on degrees. I remember, and that is the same time we were finishing also primary schools and secondary school, many young people were dying to go to universities because they were said, without a degree, you are a fool. Without a degree, you are not hot, the language of young people. So get it. When the president, former president, His Excellency Mwai Kibaki, opened up and liberalized education by introducing parallel programs in the university and paying primary schools, then there was that upsurge again for people who could previously not afford education, got into primary. And that lot now, the lot that Kibaki offered free primary education is the lot that is now in the university. These people and us who had come before, we could not breathe until we got to the university. And I tell you, the first time I heard the word university, I was in class 3. And I had it with my class teacher. I thought university was a city. Somewhere after school, I would go and live happily.
You live in uni.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought it was a city. A city on its own. Then you say, I'm going to London, going to Nairobi.
I'm going to university.
Yes.
So the language is work hard so that you can go to university.
Yes, and it was good because you want to live out of the shackles of poverty. You want to at least entangle yourself from the village life that doesn't promise and offer anything. That one was indoctrinated in us. And everybody now started thinking there is no life without university. That is why they started mushrooming everywhere. Every community started demanding their form of a college, which is a university. If you check, almost every major tribe in Kenya agitated and pushed for a charter to open a university. And they would have delegations to president saying we want our own university. Everybody started claiming it. Let me not mention them, but even my people in Mount Kenya, Almost now again, every sub-clan of a tribe started asking for university. Every tribe, everywhere you go, people started converting the previous technical training institute and polytechnics into universities. The mad rush, because I call it so, the mad rush disinherited our young people because they cannot train for a skill. So everybody wants now to go to university.
So Zach, I mean, it's some things are very clear now to us that the clamor for university education then may have lost its merit along the line.
Yes.
What's now the option?
The option is what Eric insinuated before. The future, I would call it, today and the future now, is a skilling of the young people, which is happening in Technical Training Institute. The reason the clamor was lost for university, as you have rightly mentioned, is because after university, now people got into university, colleges were opened, young people flooded there. Parallel program, people sold land, sold cattle, people started fundraising, got money and got into university. So as many as young people, out of 10, 6 at least would go to the university. Now, after university, what?
But do you know why that clamor was actually justified? I belong to that age where the one university in the country started diversifying. They moved the Faculty of Education from the University of Nairobi to Kenyatta. It started. But it was one university in the entire country. You had a letter of employment before you even finished your last paper in the university. You knew where you were going, and you knew.
Companies would table their bureaus out.
They would start, even when you're in Form 4, they would choose you. The tea industry did that. The banking industry did that in Form 6. Jobs used to look for people, not the other way around. Now, when somebody was in university, the chances were even greater. So, remember, we even had an examination called KJSC, Kenya Junior, Form 2. At Form 2, you could fit in. Now, all these tables that we speak of were not only functional, but people were absorbed into these divots. So you find people joining Kenya Railway, they're joining all these other government parastatals. But as I said, jobs came a-begging. So there was a great need for people to go to university because they could see. And how do you measure it? So-and-so's son went to university, has built a corrugated iron sheet house for the parents. Give him a few years. So-and-so's son who went to university is driving a car. So people saw, no, this university there was evidence that this university was a good thing.
So I want to agree with him that the clamor was justified for that season. But as you know, season changes.
They change. Yes, and they change rapidly.
Because today, if you say that jobs are looking for young people, you just need to say you have a job that you are paying 50,000 and you want 10 young people and put it in paper.
You'll get a million applications.
Then you'll see the mess. You see the pandemonium in your compound.
So we have very many, and this is where also the government now comes in as well. So we have very many skilled people, educated people. They have degrees. We have now many people who are going through TVETs and they're coming out with their skill. The job opportunities as well. I see, for example, the UK government has now said that Kenyans who do not have university degrees but have an opportunity,
but have a skill. Yes.
Can go and work and live in the UK. And when I saw this is an opportunity for the government to actually secure positions for Kenyans. Because one thing that we do have in this country is skilled labor. If we can find ways of exporting this skilled labor, then that would help. I got, for example, some comments from somebody who was saying the Riyadh Metro in Saudi Arabia, when it was just being done just the other day, the people who are recruiting even came to Kenya and they said, we are looking for people who are skilled and you can come and work in Saudi Arabia, in Riyadh, and there's a job opportunity.
With a full work permit.
Full work permit.
And paid
come
ticket.
And work. And paid ticket. What happened? Very many people applied, very many people were interviewed, very many people got the opportunities. Now it came to the issue of facilitating their travel. Passport. They did not go. Why? Delays at passport. Government's role in ensuring that this skilled labor can then find places.
But by the way, I will answer that and then get into the real metal of opportunities in skills. Why the world is going TVET way. Today, the president has been very harsh on immigration people, so that they can electronize the way we get our passport. Today, you don't need to go to Nyayo House, the infamous Nyayo House. You don't have to go there. You just put your online application. Within some time, you get communication. You only need to go there to pick your passport. For those people who are going out, I remember there was a plan.
And pick.
Yeah. You just go, you get an alert, come and pick your passport, is ready, then you can do what you want. And I think it's within 14 or 30 days. Today, actually, it's 14 days. Today, that program of people who get jobs on a short notice out there, the president provided an opportunity for them to get passports at the port of entry. So that you are going specifically for some work and it is identified, every due diligence is done, you just need this paper to go. Just get into your plane and go. At the port of entry, through our high commission offices or through our ambassador, our embassies, get what you need to go and work. Let us formalize paper later, which is not how governments operate. But for the president's urge to see that young people are not blaming government for their facilitation, he has gone out of hand in many things, and I would enumerate them, just to ensure that young people are not hindered by this juggernaut called government that seems to be slow, and many things.
Okay.
So that one happens that way. Can I now get into the skilling of young people, especially now that today is their World Skills Day? First of all, to skill our young people, it was decided in our re-election manifesto, we would need as many technical institutes, national polytechnics, and village polytechnics, the one we used to call poly. Today we call them vocational education centers.
Yep.
So that we remove the stigma.
Zach, can I just interrupt you for a bit? So we go into this quick break. We want to take a look at weather and traffic. And producer John tells me it's about time that we do this.
Okay.
We have in the studio Zach Kenuthia. He is a Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Education. Young man, very energetic, very opinionated, and is bringing that skill into government. Yesterday we were talking about bringing skill into government, the skill of youth into government. He's here. Today is World Youth Skills Day. We are talking about that. Also, we are looking at education. We will not avoid discussing what has happened in terms of school and education and children staying at home for so many months. Keep it right here. You are on Spice FM in Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri and Malindi. And you're also catching us live on KTN Home. This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. It's now 25 minutes after 7.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
Still quite overcast in Nairobi at 14 degrees. We'll see a high of 21 today and lows of 13. Rain in Njeri is what is forecasted for today. 20 the high and lows of 13. Mostly cloudy conditions in Nakuru at 13 degrees. We'll see thunderstorms in the afternoon with highs of 21 and lows of 12. In Eldoret this morning at 13 degrees, it's mostly cloudy. Highs of 19 and lows of 12 with thunderstorms forecasted for later on. Mostly cloudy in Kisumu at 18 degrees. Highs of 26 and lows of 18. It's going to be be a wet afternoon. It'll also be a wet afternoon in Kakamega with highs of 23 and lows of 15. 26 degrees in Malindi, mostly cloudy conditions throughout today, highs of 28 and lows of 24, and the rain has stopped. 24 degrees in Mombasa and mostly cloudy, highs of 29 and lows of 24. Let's take a look in Kampala, where it's mostly cloudy at 18 degrees and forecasted for rain later with highs of 25 and lows of 18. Dar es Salaam is partly cloudy at 23 degrees, highs of 30 and lows of 23. In Johannesburg, it's quite the frosty morning, -2 currently. We'll see highs of 14 and will come down to lows of -1. In Lagos today, clear skies at 24 degrees, highs of 28 and lows of 23. We'll take a look at the skies in a short while. On Battle Road this morning, it's really clogged up just between the SGR and General Motors. That stretch is going to take some time to get out of. Getting to Uhuru Highway, though, however, again, all the way from the Nyayo Stadium roundabout through to Westlands, it's a snail's pace this morning. Thika Road inbound traffic right at the Muthaiga corner, and before that at the junction of Kiambu Road, getting then to the Pangani underpass and into the CBD. This is where the trouble spots are, as usual. We don't expect anything crazy. Where we do expect some craziness this morning is an industrial area where Lunga Lunga Road has been closed without prior information for whatever reason we do not know. So if you're not there yet and you're going in that direction, you might want to use an alternate route because you will be stuck. Anything else that we need to know about, do let us know. The eastern and southern bypasses for now are open, not much of a problem. We'll take a look in a short while and see how that might have changed. You can get in touch with us as well to let us know what you see. Don't forget, on Twitter, Spice FM KE.
This is The Situation. It's Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting on Spice FM in Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret and Njeri, and also on KTN Home. In the room this morning, my name is Eric Latiff. We have Nduh Okoh, CT Muga, and the Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Zach Kinuthia. Before we went into the break, Zach, you were talking about a skill and the importance of the youth acquiring a skill through the TVETs.
Yes, thank you. Let me pick it where I left, and thank you again. When the president was promising young people that he would transform their lives in 2013, all the way to when he was being re-elected in 2017, the cry from the young people is singular. From Mombasa to Mandera, from Mount Kenya to Eastern, that Mr. President, give us jobs. Mr. President, give us money. We want money in our pocket. And that one was not as easy as we thought until we got into office, at least for him, because he's been there earlier. We realized that no government under the sun can employ all its elites. No government, even in America, doesn't employ its all people. UK, name them, even Scandinavia. But the government's major role is to facilitate the growth of young people, whether that is in business, in art, in music, in farming, in whatever business they engage in. The government facilitate themselves, facilitate them to make them, earn and be comfortable. And how is that possible for a surging population of young people that has no skill? Then it became a nightmare. The president, through his wisdom again, realized that for him to open young people's opportunity in a budding economy, which is now, as you know, becoming a middle level income, we had to skill young people fast. So that, as you mentioned earlier, as he does his shuttle diplomacy, remember he's the ambassador, global youth ambassador, is now. Our president is a global youth ambassador. He continues opening opportunities to countries albeit covertly, so that we can get jobs out there.
So you're saying there is an agenda from the government perspective to be youth inclusive, young people inclusive. Is that the case? Because
And it is deliberate.
Okay, it's
Yes.
deliberate, but on the outside of it, many youth feel disenfranchised.
Yes,
so
it's-
they feel that it actually is not the agenda. How do you reconcile the two?
That is what I said, and they have all the reasons to feel so until at such a point when we realize they are ignorant. And that is why we are coming to debunk the ignorance by saying this is what we have done. I see when I move, I was in Voi last week, and I meet people and say, "Are you sure? Is the government doing that for us? Why don't we know?" I say, ignorance is not a defense.
But
when
also,
I'm speaking as a young person,
also lack of communication is not a defense.
well,
Zach.
from our side.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. That one also need to be sorted, and there's a task force that is handling that. How to have effective communication from government on what is being done, including the opening of the country and many things. But coming home on these skills, I'll tell you something that I keep saying everywhere I go, and young people are just looking at me and saying, "We did not know. How come we don't know?" And again, as you said, the communication. I tell them, in the plan which is grand of skilling every youth who has an interest, the president has 3 things. And this is what I would think is very important this morning for me to say on radio. The first thing, coming at the backdrop that the president wants to skill every young person who wish to be skilled, is creation of technical training institutes in every constituency. That is a plan from 2017 re-election agenda. 290 constituencies will have 290 technical training institute for themselves. Every constituency will have one.
How many do we have currently?
And today, I'll give you the number that we have. Is it now today, 15th of
This is
July?
290 new,
290, new, completely new.
irrespective of what they had existing.
Yes, new. Or if they are good that existed but ran down, upgrade them and put equipments in them.
We have 2
Let me
years
tell
to
you.
go. Uh-huh.
Yeah, but we have. I'll tell you the number. You'll be surprised. We are not talking about we want 290. That was 2017. This is the language of 2017.
Okay.
We must have 290 by 2022.
Okay.
Out of these 290, each must be equipped with high-tech machines, and those machines are already here. Those that have been skilled, rather equipped. Let me put the numbers today. We have 187 operational, equipped and staffed with young people and trainers today, scattered across the country. Of the remaining 103, 67 are supposed to be commissioned before the end of this year. And commissioning means go and give them a letter of operation. By the way, all the machines, these high-tech machines, have been put into those 67 because it is a matter of, cracks, contractor is get out of sight, just let have students come in. Many of them would have admitted students in September.
What is machines?
High-tech machines. It means, it depends on what every technical training has been targeted for. If there is automotive, we are giving them high-tech machines for automotive training.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
Are you mirroring this training with the needs and the demands that we have in the country?
Yes, exactly. Before, people were training automotive with a carburetor machine. An engine of carburetor, you're training young people to do automotive engineering, or rather mechanic, using a carburetor. That is not the need of the market, as he's asking. We have brought machines that reflect industrial linkage knowledge. What does the industry require? They are the one actually who gave us the concept. They say if you want us to employ young people after they have come, or if you want them to feel relevant in the job market, train them on this catalog, get these machines and put them in their technical training, and bring out the trainers to get this kind of knowledge, so that when they come to us, they are ready to take off. If you say you are a trained hotelier, do you know the knowledge of hospitality? And how is it evolving over time? Because this is some of the things that keep getting out.
What is truly tragic is that the polytechnics used to do precisely that before they were allowed to be run down, or before they were converted into universities.
Yes.
Had they even been converted into just purely technical universities,
Exactly.
where the emphasis,
Yeah.
this problem wouldn't be what we are saying it is. But somehow we seem to have preferred to actually sacrifice. Well, we took prestige and put it before pragmatism.
Yep.
Exactly. And the pragmatism is the reality of our time.
Yes.
We can't grow an economy.
This is what we are seeing now.
Yeah, we can't grow.
I think going back
so
to
let me
the question-
finish. Let me just finish there and say the 67 by the end of this year will be fully operational. That one is 187, 63. It's about 240 something. The remaining 40 or 30 have unique problems because they have picked up, but there seems to be problems with the communities. Because we wanted to team up with the communities so that we can train their young people, their children, on what is relevant first in their area.
What is the problem with the community?
Because some say our clan cannot give out this land for building a TTI. Then we say land belongs to county government. And when county governments start, by the way, this country has serious issues of politics and clan in other areas. The more you get out of Nairobi, in other areas, there's a problem. So that even if you build it, they will say their children cannot come there. Because they are never consulted. These are problems we are sorting.
In schools, even with the clinics.
Yeah, hospitals, exactly. Hospital facilities.
So basically,
but we are sorting
accessing
it.
land to build this is an issue.
No, we have land.
Okay.
But we are saying, because land, again, is held in the custody of county governments, interest of the people,
Yep.
we had identified these things before. That was actually in 2016 when the mapping was being done. And the issues have been solved one by one. We solved others in Kilifi last week. We are going to solve others in Wajir next week. I'm going there. So that we have issues to agree. This is our future. It's the future of our children. Let's stop who is which clan and the ABCD. Put our children into this institution. Let them go out there and become competitive because the world is opening up.
So
If
one
it
of
is
the
about
three,
ICT,
one of the three things that Zaki was saying, the president was saying, is that have the 290 technical training.
Yes.
Second,
and equip them. That is
equip
one.
them.
The second one is that accessing technical education, that is skilling, is very expensive. When the president came in, it was an average of 105,000 every year. But that money is too much. Even a student at the university pays cheaper. I mean, it's hugely subsidized through capitation program. So he formed a quick committee that rationalized the amount of money that a student should pay every year. And the amount that was agreed on was 56,400 shillings. But then he asked them, I would say us if I was there, but them, this 56,000 is not Ajo. What did you say? Pinky Ponky when I came in. I heard you mention, and I think I laughed at that one. He said it's not possible. Many families cannot raise 56,000 shillings to take their children a year. So what he did, he tasked the treasury to put automatic capitation of 30,000 shillings for every student joining TVET. 30 out of 56. That one brought a difference of 26,000. Then he said, even 26,000 folks, it's not easy for families to get it because I want to reach the most marginalized youth in this country. So he said, do you have solutions of what you can do? Then they said, no, Mr. President, unless you tell us. So what he did, he called Higher Education Loans Board. And for the first time, as Mwalimu here would confirm, HELB was largely for higher education, universities. But he said, every student joining technical university entitled to 30,000 capitation must get a concessional loan of 40,000.
okay.
So everybody now going to these colleges have 30,000 paid, difference is 26, then 40,000 paid in terms of loan. So that after you start earning, pay. This 40,000 will pay 26,400, and then you will have 13,500, 600 or whatever it is. That one is supposed to pay in case that TVET has no boarding facilities. It's supposed to somehow find a place for you around.
It's to cater for your other needs.
Other needs, including clothes and food. By the way, this one has spurred growth of villages, and people are building homes. Small homes, even if they are mabati, whatever it is, to accommodate
As
these
dormitories
students.
and hostels.
Yeah, to hostels.
Number 3.
The third thing that the president has done is to bring in highly trained trainers, just to call them.
Where from?
From us, trained by the people who delivered these machines, because some are very complex to operate. They were trained by Chinese people who brought us some of these very best machines through the Avic International Company. They were trained for a month to go and train others. And I can tell you today, there are colleges whose machines have not been operational because the skill required to run them again is too high. And some of these teachers, others died, others left. So the government is now reinvigorating as early as 2 months ago, except for this COVID thing, as things have slowed down, to put more teachers under this training. And they have been brought here. Come and train. You are the people who supplied the machine. Train our young people. Pass this knowledge so that now by the end of 4, 5, even 6 years, as many trainers as possible are able to operate this complex machine.
Yep.
So those are the 3 things that the president has said. If I can build them schools, if I can pay their school fees, because it is largely free. If I say it is free, I am not wrong, because I have enumerated how free it is. And thirdly, I can give them highly trained, skilled teacher. What does the president want? The question as you asked, what if now, as we said, let's go to university is a way, let's go there. Everybody went and there was no jobs. It was flooded. Now people are asking me, what about this kid you are saying? Let us all go TVET. What about the day we will all be skilled by different skills and jobs will not be available? This is the answer. You mentioned that the UK has intentions to admit Kenyans in their country who are highly skilled without degree, which was not the norm, so that they can offer their skills to that country. Remember Brexit and post-COVID UK, things that will be happening across the world. This is the plan. The president wants as many people as possible trained and flooded. Why? Because he's doing his diplomacy by asking the government of Germany, the government of China, the government of Canada, and our African counterparts to accept now that Africa is the youngest age in terms of labor. We are the youngest. America is at 34, Britain is at 36, China is at 33. You know, if you go to Australia, it's 37. Other countries like Scandinavia is 37. That is the average labor age.
Those are countries that have aging populations.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
So to find somebody who can do your manual job there, an average person
So there's
will be
a
that
plan
5,
by the
6.
government to
have as many
export
people.
our labor.
That is
Labor and human
what
resources.
we want. Not to export. We would say, because if you say export, then we will have first to be sufficient. We are saying if our young people would get opportunities out there, all the thing I need to do as their president is to skill them so that they are competitive in those labor
But
markets.
Mr. Kinuthia, you know we're already exporting labor.
Skilled or unskilled?
Skilled in academia.
Okay, well, in academia.
Because if it's a discussion we've had here, but I wanted to ask you a question.
Please.
The German government wanted to build us a technical university. What became of it?
Well, that's a good question. I'll answer immediately and say, in March, towards the end of March, the president and his counterpart in Germany, the president of Germany, came to Kenya. We received him, took him to Kiambu Institute of Science Technology, handed over the site for them to build University of Applied Sciences. This is a technical university in our tongue, but it's called University of Applied Sciences. And they are putting a 5 billion university in Kist, where they will train young people on the skill they use, automotive especially. By the way, the one they have set out is mechatronics and automotive. From Germany's skill to be brought here. And they have started. By the way, the problem was the land.
What have they done in starting?
Yeah, they are finalizing on awarding the contract, and they say they are going to do it themselves. So all the necessary workings of the paper that they need is almost complete. And I should be meeting their envoy to find out more on that. But we handed over the site. We broke.
When do you hope to break ground?
The ground will be broken before the end of the year. Well, that was the case before COVID. We will have to see whether they have revised. But the president came, gave the blessing and left. And by the way, at the same time, because today is your World Youth Skill Day, we had three presidents in the same institution. Our president, the president of Germany, and then the president of World Skill International. There is a UN of a kind called WSI, World Skill International.
What does he do?
These people are the one who mobilize the skills and the skilling institution and knowledges available across the world. What does the UN do? The very role that the UN does is the same role in terms of skills that WSI mobilizes people, resources, mobilizes sports about skilling and policy formulation at the global level. So, by the way, it has only 83 countries on board, and it is recruiting more. Kenya was admitted this year. And we're just finishing the paper. How the benefits to accrue once we join WSI, and I'm saying this because our listeners would find it complex to understand perhaps. I'm saying whatever benefits Kenya accrue being a member of United Nations is somehow the same as we would accrue joining WSI. Yeah, on what they offer. No, not UN is a complex organization, but WSI is more focused on mobilizing resources around skills and skilling of the young people in the world.
Kenya had very many institutes of technology or advanced technology.
Yes.
What criteria did they use in choosing Kiambu?
First of all, they wanted land, enough land, which was not possible out of town in that size. Those Institute of Advanced Technology, Institute of Technology outside, they had many. Actually, they had mapped Thika. They wanted Thika, they wanted Kiambu, they wanted Nyanza, that is Kisumu, and they wanted somewhere else. But they settled on Kiambu. But the land was not ready, as it was owned by trustees, and there were issues. Actually, we took a whole year to negotiate land out of trustees to be used for common purpose of this Germany. And that is how they said, well, as you would know, the embassy in Germany here also is run somehow by some of us, except the high positions of first secretaries. And these are the people who advise them. We do not need to go out of town because of movement, many things. Details may not be, available.
Many factors to be considered.
Yeah.
It
was largely their choice.
We'll be coming to the end of the conversation soon, and we wouldn't like you to go without us delving into the issue of COVID and education.
Yes.
So, and you say you are among the technical team that advised the CS that the best thing for us to do right now is lose a year of education and training, and just advise that colleges are going to resume later this year.
Yes.
You have seen the backlash, and you're hearing the conversations that are coming from other education experts, from people who also run institutions of education, and from parents. And they're saying, look, this is going to have a huge impact on the development of our children. What do you respond?
I would say, first of all the tertiary institutions, that is including Technical Training Institute, polytechnics, and universities, have been allowed to open phasedly. That is phased reopening, as from 1st September.
Yep.
The assumption is that they are adults, and therefore they can maintain the Ministry of Health protocols and keep them. That is sanitize, close your, mask your face, or rather your nose and your mouth, and maintain social distance. For adults, it is easy to maintain that. For children, it is not. However, why we say tertiary institutions must open is based on the fact that their curricula is not uniform, as opposed to basic education. From pre-primary to class, or rather to Form 4, we have a uniform curriculum. What do we call it? The
KICD.
No. Calendar. Let's call it school calendar. The school calendar is regulated by the ministry from pre-primary all the way to Form 4. And what affects a school in Mombasa affects a school in Moyale, affects a school in Machakos, affects a school in Kilifi, because it is a uniform calendar. But for a university, every university through their council and senate runs its own program, runs their own calendar, timings, and therefore, if you can face the number of students who can come at a certain time to begin or to complete their year, then that is okay. Bring them as guided by the protocols of health. So, if universities begin their year in July, another university in May, another university in January, another one in October, like my alma mater used to begin in October. If you can put a program that can bring people phasedly, if that is for the year, if that is first year, if that is a admission team, if that is the year exams, just make something that will say social physical distancing. 2, we'll say we have enough hostels, but for a certain number. So this is the only number that can come back, and therefore that year is only that we are bringing in. So uniform, non-uniform school calendar helped us a lot in determining why we can reopen tertiary institutions. For basic education, I want to say the first thing that governments are tasked to do all over is the prevention of loss of life and property. And that is why governments exist, to protect property of the people and to protect the lives of the people.
Okay.
For the children, we said, it is a nightmare today to imagine our school infrastructure from pre-primary to Form 4 can maintain social physical distancing. It is not possible. Our classes cannot have 25 students and still maintain not half, even a quarter of our children cannot come back.
Okay.
Because we have 16 million school-going children.
All those arguments, we've heard them. But now the counter argument is education does not have to be physical.
Yes.
We have seen other countries and other jurisdictions where students are still learning, but they're learning from home.
Yes.
There's also the argument that you could have allowed certain classes, standard 8 and the form 4s, to go to school and continue learning. You're only dealing with about 1.8 million or close to that number of students. Why wasn't that considered?
By the way, let me first answer and say, when people say other jurisdictions have continued dispensing knowledge virtually, it is not informed on the truth. The truth is, even Kenya continues to offer e-learning, but it cannot be it cannot be what we take pride in as a country, because it is not accessible to not even 5%. It's not accessible even to 3%.
And why is that the case?
But Zach,
Because of our infrastructure, our virtual learning infrastructure.
Again, why is that the case?
Over time, and let me say, even in those jurisdictions that we say that are advanced, this one was never anticipated anywhere.
Okay, so now that we see things that are like this that are happening, suffice to say that it would be absolutely necessary. I mean, I think, the time is far gone, but it's not too late. In terms of interventions, and we're not saying that in the event that a pandemic would happen, another one would happen. But just because of the natural trajectory of things, in terms of evolution, in terms of innovation and creation, aren't these things that we should be looking at?
Exactly. Now going forward, that is it. And not just in school. Let me tell you, Nduh, today, if you are building a home, we focused more on libraries. You know, if you have a good home, you would say, I want a library in the house. In the coming days, we will not be talking about libraries as much, while we will not destroy them, but we'll be talking of a smart room. A smart room where Eric can call me from home with a full internet, accessibility and cameras in my house. Because now the world has now gone to that direction. As far as governments are concerned,
this is a long conversation. This is a long conversation, Zach, and we'll continue with this. Let's just take a quick break, and also because KTN home audience will be taking a quick short break. Before we do that, let's talk about a KPA portal. This is the information portal called Captain Cargo, KARGO. We're looking at the processes that a vessel undergoes before it's allowed to dock at a port.
Right, so the 14 days list of vessel arrivals are coming up, and so you are then very aware of what your cargo then would look like on ship, right? And so then what would happen after that, according to the portal, is that your agent would lodge what they call an impending arrival notice. So you even get that and you're aware, okay, this stuff is coming in. And then you get the details and they're automatically mapped. The vessel confirms via radio telephone to the vessel and then now to the port that the KPA, what they call the harbour master. The harbour master then is aware that this stuff is actually coming, it's on its way, and the KPA pilot boards the vessel for safe navigation to the allocated berth in the harbour. Now, all of this information, again, you can see how it's all working out, and you can actually track and trace based on what you're seeing here, how that would actually play out.
And it's all right there. Keep it right here. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Taking a quick break on KTN Home and also a quick break on Spice FM. We continue our conversation with Zach Kinodia, the CAS for Education. So, Zach, as we come to the conclusion of this,
classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads. You're listening to Spice FM.
What the government has been doing to address the need that we currently have.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
But what else could be done? Suppose we are not able to open
Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Opened in September, had we also not been warned by Minister of Health, that this is a month of peak. This is a month that the pandemic will be at the peak in our region, especially in the tropics, and therefore exposing children at the peak time would be a disastrous risk that you cannot take.
Peak time? What did they say? How did they explain this? Why this season and not any other?
I will say I will not say why they said it, but I think their matrix and
their modeling and all.
They said it is a peak.
You know why I'm asking this question is because some of this modeling has been proven to be almost null and void. Continuously. You are told this is going to happen, it doesn't. Or when it happens, it doesn't happen at the time it was said. But nonetheless, please continue.
Yeah, I would say, and perhaps looking at what is happening, maybe you could trust them. Looking at how
the numbers are
now
rising
coming.
now.
Especially yesterday, we don't know what today will be. But mass testing obviously was supposed to bring data up. I would say what we need to do and what we are doing, because I was discussing yesterday with my PS about it, and I was asking him, suppose COVID goes nowhere by January, what are you going to tell the country?
Yep.
And then this was a question that we are brainstorming and said, all we need to do is to ensure that every school in this country, we have about 43,000 schools, has flowing clean water for sanitization. 2, we will have to invest on this garment. We will have to, and
on face masks.
Make it face mask, and make it a mandatory, garment to wear for children. A discipline issue,
like the uniform.
Like the way uniform was made an issue.
Number
we have
3.
to make it an issue. And the third one, we will have to ensure that we cancel all the risk areas that can accelerate this disease, including co-curricular activities.
Okay.
So that they are not playing. That would be the hardest thing. No play, no drama, no music, nothing except. Once children go to learning, you leave and go home. 2, those who are boarding, you are under strict measure to ensure that you do not flout all these things that have been kept. But we hope, Eric, as I finish, that this pandemic will either have entered into population so that we just treat it as we treat common cold, or we'll have gotten a vaccine and medicine to ensure that this one is not stopping our country, is not stopping our economy, is not stopping our way of living, it's not disrupting our social life,
Indeed.
and much of it, our economy. Finally, I want to wish all the young people who are doing skilled courses all over the country a very bright and beautiful day today as we reflect on the place of the skills and the resilience of a young person to do. Get somewhere and do a skill because you are paying for you young people. Get to these colleges, register, we'll pay for you, get a skill. Even one year plumbing, go and start doing the barua and start somewhere and make your life something out of nothing. If you live in a self-putting tent, nobody's going to help you. Rise up.
Thank you very much.
Spice up your life.
We'll invite you again so we can have this conversation at length.
As
It's the CAS for Education. Good morning. It's now 8 o'clock. Have a good day, Zach.
Thank you very much.
All right.
And have a good day. Running to Muranga.
All right, let's take a look at what's happening on the roads right now. Mombasa Road is it looks a little chock-a-blocked from certain areas, and that will definitely open up in a short while. Nothing major to worry about. Getting into the CBD as well shouldn't be much of an issue as we look at it now. Everywhere we see, it's a typical Wednesday morning. Nothing terribly out of order. Getting into the CBD, however, from Thika Road, we have a bit of an issue right around the Pangani underpass. It's moving slowly, but it is moving all the same. We'll take a look at that once we come back in about half an hour or so. If you do see anything, not to forget, you can get in touch. Spice FMKE on Twitter. Let us know what you see.
102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Traffic. This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep,
This conversation
controversial.
continues
In the room,
globally.
we have Seat.
www.spicefm.co.ke. It's also live streaming on social media, Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We are on terrestrial 94.4 Nairobi, Mombasa 87.9, Kisumu 102.5, Nakuru 96.0, 96.7 in Eldoret, in Njeri 90.9, Malindi 97.7 countrywide, and also now for the next 1 hour as well, we are still on KTN Home. In this hour, let's talk about the plight of tenants and the plight of landlords. We have seen a lot of data that's coming from various polling companies and also coming from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics that's showing that very many people are now increasingly unable to pay rent. That is meeting the basic need of housing. Very many people are unable to pay rent, and the numbers keep increasing. The number that were unable to pay rent in May was higher than the number of people who were unable to pay rent in April. And many of the tenants are saying, well, we try talking to our landlords, and our landlords are just telling us, look, there's no reprieve that I can offer. There are few landlords who've given reprieve to their tenants, but many have not passed on any reprieve to their tenants. Landlords as well have been complaining and saying, we also would like some sort of reprieve. And in terms of, we have loans to pay, we've got taxes to pay, and all that. So let's have that conversation. And now we're joined by somebody who is the Secretary General of the Landlords and Tenants Association. Those two are in the same association. Ben Liai, good morning.
Good morning.
How is that possible that those two are in the same association?
Basically, for landlords and tenants, it's basically like water and, let me say, oil, exactly. And the reason why we came up with making sure that at least we bring together landlords and tenants is because, number one, these people, even though they have different objectives, but they have to relate with one another. Reason being that for a tenant, is looking for a basic need, which is shelter. But then for the landlord, is in business, is invested. So basically, these are two different divergent objectives, but at the same time, they have to relate. And this one causes a lot of conflicts in between the two, the landlord and the tenant. And with us, thought that at least it will be good if we can offer a platform whereby at least we are able to make both of them understand laws, because the law that govern the tenants and the landlord. And then we can enlighten them on the laws, and eventually they can be able to live in harmony. Yes.
It seems like it's not very harmonized at the moment. There seems to be a lot going on. We know that COVID has brought quite a lot of these issues out. Yeah. And a lot more people, like Eric said, are unable to pay their rent. A lot of people are being kicked out of their homes, or being, in some cases, locked in because they're unable to pay rent. It's an impasse. How is this going to be sorted out?
Okay, it's unfortunate that we get ourselves in this kind of a situation. Remember, that is on 1st of April, as an association, we came out and said that the tenants should not pay rent, simply because the future was uncertain. We didn't know exactly what's going to happen, and people are losing jobs. People are going for unpaid leave. And so you ask yourself, are you going to pay for your rent, and you don't know how you're going to survive in the next moving forward? Then by then we are trying to force the government to come in and maybe probably give some kind of relief to the tenants. Some of the things that we pushed, maybe let me just say 10% was basically taken into consideration. For instance, we said that most landlords are paying their loans. They're servicing their loans. So the government should come out and maybe give a moratorium to those who are paying loans, so that at least they're not able, they don't get into difficulty in terms of servicing their loans. And true to that, at least the government came in out through central bank. They said if you have a loan, you can actually visit your financial institution. So to some extent, that one gave us some kind of reprieve. But again, even our clarion call also made some landlords to actually do a waiver. Like maybe 2 months, 3 months, and even some landlords went in and gave a discount on rent. So to some extent, again, that one also cushioned quite a number of tenants are across. So now, at this kind of situation again, the only thing we can only say is that it's for both landlords and tenants to come and sit down and see, this is a problem that we have, how do we mitigate this kind of a situation?
And what's the role of the association in that?
Now, the role of association is basically to create awareness, because we've realized for a long time people don't understand the laws. Like, I'll give you an example. For instance, for the landlord, a landlord would feel that if a tenant moves out of my premises without paying any kind of, paying rent, then I'm not going to get that money. So you find that they come up with some stringent measures that would actually make the whole thing look like there's no decorum in terms of the relationship. So they use through the agents they'll use some kind of force, and we've even had some landlords using goons maybe to evict tenants out of there.
There was a case reported in Nakuru just the other day, was it Monday?
Yeah.
About a woman and her child who were welded into the house.
You're locked in.
Yes, such kind of things do happen. But then again, you realize the people who make this industry to be, to be in a sham is, let me say, the agents, because the agents want to get their commission. And on the same side, at the same time, the landlords, they also want their money. So you realize that instead of going through the laws, using the laws that are there, of which most people don't know. So as an association, our work is just to make people understand that, hey, we have laws that govern landlords and tenants, of which most people don't know.
Okay, I want to bring you back to my question. My question was actually in relation to what is happening currently.
Yes.
Where landlords and tenants, you said, need to have a conversation so that they can move forward.
Yes.
What is the role of the association in facilitating this conversation? Do you need to have all the landlords, like the representatives of landlords sitting in one room and representatives of tenants, so they can speak with one voice and say, this is what, as as landlords, we are extending a 10% to 5% discount to all our tenants, irrespective of how much the 5% translates to. And then this is our commitment as tenants as well.
Okay, basically it will not be easy to bring together all the tenants, and all the landlords, maybe, for example, to get a solution way forward. But as an association, what we are planning to do is basically partner with different type of organizations, so that at least we can create some kind of awareness for what is happening. Because you realize, even for the landlords, that we have landlords in different categories. Like, we have those who have structural structures within Nairobi. We have those who have they target, let me say, the middle class. And of course, we have the high end and all that. So basically, these are wide. It's a wide area that, of course, you cannot bring all of them together. And again, you also realize some of them, of course, they've taken loans to put up the houses. So there's no way they'll come in giving out discounts or maybe waivers. And others, of course, that was part of their retirement benefits that they put into the housing sector. For them, some of them maybe might actually agree to giving out waivers. So basically, here the most important thing is basically the awareness that we have to create, so that landlords have to understand that, one, you cannot evict a tenant just anyhowly, and of course without a court order. And again, for the tenants have to know that it is their responsibility to do what? To pay the rent. So now you see, the problem we have is that when a tenant, just like you said, oil and water, when a tenant is unable to pay rent, instead of approaching the landlord, they keep off. And that's where we come in. So we offer that opportunity for them, at least for us to talk to the landlord, on their behalf, so that the landlord can be able to understand, look, if this guy moves out, then whatever that he's supposed to pay, let the association help you to get that money.
And are you getting people who would be in that position, and you're actually doing something and then seeing that this has borne some kind of fruit, negotiating on someone's behalf, for example? Are there many, around the country then who can get that kind of relief?
Exactly. Okay, we've actually helped quite a number of let me say landlords and tenants who've get themselves in these kind of situations. And one thing that we come to understand that when the third party comes in between the landlord and tenant, in most cases landlords tend to understand. But then they tend to understand because there's someone else talking on behalf of, of the tenant. But in a situation whereby both of them are supposed to talk, then that's where we get conflicts coming in. But majority of the landlords, they definitely they listen. And again, that's why you see, like, the only thing that the government came out to do was to request the landlords to dialogue. Because to some extent, in some areas, it has actually worked. It's only a few areas whereby we have maybe rogue agents and landlords who've they go against the will, and of course they want to do take law, maybe, let me say, in their hands.
Really, what is the structural organization of this association in terms of membership and the cross-section of your membership? How many landlords do you have as members? How many tenants do you have as members? How are they organized? What is the organization in terms of leadership? How does it look like? And what's the representation of each of these?
Okay, basically, the association, it's registered under the Societies Act, whereby the leadership is actually, it just takes the normal structure of the chairman, Secretary General, and other officials within a society, just as stipulated in Act 108. But then when it comes to members in terms of landlords and and tenants across the country, we're talking of about 16,000 at the moment, 16,000 tenants and about 10,000 landlords. Those are the ones that we have in our data. And basically, more in terms of structural communication and all that, we basically do, let me say, through mails and phones and all that, to maybe to pass over the message and get to understand what happened. Like, for instance, when we got ourselves into the COVID-19 situation, it's actually the tenants who forced us, like, hey, what are you guys doing now? We get ourselves in this kind of a situation. So are you going to do something? Are you going to come out and maybe probably protect us? Because now, look, we're going for unpaid leave and we don't know exactly what to do. Can you talk to the landlords so that they can be able to do something? But then we decided to come out, first of all, and give a solution that should basically, actually, to some extent, come from the government also. But now the government kept off.
How did you arrive at this solution? So I'm looking at this, what you've said, 16,000 tenants are your members, 10,000 landlords are your members, and we've gotten into COVID from 13th of March. We have COVID. By the end of April, we already had people who had lost their incomes and were not able to pay. And tenants are already reaching out to you and saying, we'd like some solution. Did you have a meeting? Did you bring a meeting of the leadership? And is the leadership well representative of these particular two organizations, two groupings of people?
Basically, we didn't have a meeting, that one I may say, because, again, at the end of the day, the objective of the association is just to make sure that its members are well represented and covered. And at times it gets to a situation whereby you have to come out and maybe probably show leadership and maybe give direction to what exactly is supposed to happen. Remember, as this happened and the government came with directives, like talk of social distancing and such kind of stuff, whereby you will not be able even to call for a meeting of, let me say, some landlords and maybe come up with a decision on that. So basically, this was an abrupt decision that we had to come up and see how we can be able to cushion the tenants. But again, at the same time, making sure that, again, our landlords do not feel like we are really, we are not taking care of their interest. So it was really a situation that we couldn't, maybe by that particular point in time, let me say, call people together and say, now, this is the solution that we have to. But again, we still had that responsibility of making sure that at least we do something, because this was a matter that was touching the organization for the first time ever.
So you came out and said, we'd like to advise our landlords not to demand rent from their tenants.
Yes.
And yet you had not spoken to your membership, which includes landlords, for them to have the buy-in and agree that this is what we are going with.
Yes.
What kind of pushback did you get from your members, the 10,000 landlord members?
Basically,
what was the response?
Basically, of course, we didn't get some good response from some of, especially landlords, because I remember, like,
part of our landlords around Dagoretti area and Kawangware, they actually came out and did a presser, and they said they do not agree to that. But again, at the same time, quite a number of landlords came out and actually heed our call, and they went ahead and even, gave the discounts and maybe the waiver. So it's something that basically got ourselves unprepared. But at least I'd say the way we handled it and what we are seeing within the industry at the moment, as much as we're having people who are being evicted out of their houses illegally, but at least to some extent, we had, we actually got what we needed.
Do you have
And
a
this-
role?
sorry,
Go ahead, Siti.
No, please.
Do you have a role to lobby the government?
Exactly. Now, this is another situation. Now, basically, the tenancy, when it comes to, let me say, matters to do with tenancy in the country, I think we are far much behind compared to other countries, maybe in Europe and all that, because it's only here that, let me say, a tenant will not even give you back your deposit, for instance.
The landlord.
Yes, the landlord. And again, at the same time, people do not understand the laws. You know, we have the laws that govern the tenants, Cap 296, and of course the ones, and of course for business also 301. And all these laws, they give us a guideline on how we are supposed to operate. Now, unfortunately, people in the industry do not understand that. Even some agents, they do not understand that we have laws that, of course, govern the operation. For instance, when you go to the Ministry of Housing, we have a department that is supposed to register all the agents, but only 10% have registered, which means the rest of 90%, they just...
Let me just stop you here, Ben, because I think you're still going back into what the dream of the association was, and we are asking practical questions. Yeah,
Yes.
we have people who are unable to pay rent. We have people who are not getting an income as landlords. And you have an association, and this association has come out to say that we represent landlords and tenants. My question was, have you had any meeting with government to lobby on behalf of your members that we'd like this kind of support?
Okay, in terms of lobbying, the first time when we came out on this particular issue, remember, Senator Sakaja took up the mantle, and because he came up with a bill that was supposed to basically somehow cushion the tenants. But we see that bill never saw the end of the day, because that was part of it. Because we actually met him and we said, now we have a solution. And I think the only solution that we have is that before the COVID-19 bill comes into an act, at least they should consider the tenants and the landlords. And for sure, the issue of landlords and tenants was part of what was supposed to be discussed. But unfortunately, it never saw the end of the day. Now, the only other part that we are left with is basically, let me say, to continue lobbying now, maybe probably through our members, and maybe
How
having that
exactly
unity of
do you
purpose.
lobby?
Yeah. Now, of course, now moving forward, despite the directives that we have at the moment in terms of now people cannot be able to meet and all that, so it becomes
But
really
lobbying
a problem.
doesn't necessarily require you to meet.
Yes, of course I understand, but again, one of the experience that we've had, especially trying to push this even through, let me say the legislative arm, is that we have vested interests in this kind of administration, whereby some of the people we've even approached to lobby, especially from the parliament side and all that, they kind of get a bit of cold when you talk about now representing the issues of tenants and landlords.
Why?
And
Why
the
is that
reason is that for instance, I think majority of people who are in leadership at the same time are the people who own these properties.
So they should be your members as landlords.
Yes, exactly. But again, and when you try to push the narrative of like, okay, because like what has made us to move into this is because of tenants are not able to pay their rent. So that becomes one of the major point why we are pushing for such.
How old
And
is
it has
this
always-
organization of yours?
Since 2013.
Since 2013?
Yes.
Long before COVID?
Yes.
Now, if you've been in existence since 2013, what sort of structure or mechanism do you have for conflict resolution?
Okay, within our organization, we have what we call ADR, Alternative Dispute Resolution. With ADR, at least you're able to get justice within a very short period of time. And what we've been looking at is for the tenants, for the landlords who are our members, we encourage them that within their lease that we should have a clause on ADR, because again, when tenants and landlords get themselves in this kind of a situation, then it becomes difficult even for them to rely on the lease as a way of coming up with a solution to that. So basically, ADR becomes in, okay, let me say, and of course mediation at the same time, because just as I've said before, the issue that we've had within our sector is because, of course, people don't understand the law.
Mm-hmm. But is that not part of your function to ensure that they understand the law? I mean, if I live and my living in someone's house is governed by certain rules and regulations,
you have to learn the law of the
yes,
land.
and if you are the appointed mediator, should this not take a pivotal role in what you do?
Yeah, but we see, like within our members, maybe probably what we do within our members, so we do give them materials based on the understanding of the tenancy laws and how they're supposed to operate themselves.
But is that really enough?
It's not really enough, but at least to some extent, it has actually helped. Some of our members in a way that through that document they are able to manage themselves in terms of conflict resolution within
tenants.
Their tenants
tend to also group themselves into some sort of loose associations.
Yes,
as do landlords. So when you talk about landlords and tenants, do you meet with these representatives at any given point in time? Or do you have scheduled meetings, whether it's quarterly, whether it's monthly? Do you have any such scheduled meetings?
Okay. We've not had scheduled meeting for tenants and landlords, basically. Just like as I've said before, maybe what we do, we have a communication system that we do communicate to them through online. And of course, we get to have most of our issues or maybe resolutions sorted out within such kind of parameters. But, and again, I always say, like, for every person who is a tenant or a landlord is our member. It's only that some have not activated themselves. So basically, as we move forward, we're looking into a situation whereby now, I think, because we never expected ourselves to be in this kind of a situation, but then this gives us a very big challenge moving forward, that we have to make some of these problems that we get ourselves into, get a solution for that. And of course, involving the government on the same, because without that, then again, it's just going to be a mirage in terms of trying to bring some sanity within the sector.
So you have your work cut out for you, as I hear you saying. Ben Liai, Secretary General of the Landlords and Tenants Association. You've heard what you've said. I mean, you've got a lot of work that you're still doing in terms of trying to bring the tenants and landlords together. But as I've heard you speaking, I've got to give my honest opinion here. I feel like this is an association that is just moribund. When I think about associations like yourselves and how they have addressed the plight of their members during this COVID. Kenya Bankers Association, we saw what happened. Kenya Association of Hotel Keepers and Caterers, we've spoken to them, we have heard what they've done. Kenya Association of Manufacturers, we see what they do. Kenya Flower Council, we see what they do. Kenya Association of Landlords and Tenants, we're basically not getting the answers. People are suffering. People are not able to get their income as landlords. People are not able to pay their rent as tenants. And I guess it's about time that such associations actually took up their job and they did what they are supposed to be doing, which is, if you need to lobby government, if you need to bring your membership together so that you can have a conversation that solves the issue on behalf of all the members.
I'd do that.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I mean, because if we look at the numbers of people who have actually suffered when it comes to something like this, we have people crying every day. We have stories. I mean, today we looked across media, we were able to see people who are suffering as a result of this. Every single day, this is happening. And then to think that there's an association that should be able to help in one way or another. represent the needs of these individuals, these people, to government, then I believe
does
that
raise
that's
the
how it
question.
should be
These
happening.
these
But
two
thank you
groups-
very much for speaking to us, Ben Liai, Secretary General of the Landlords and Tenants Association. This is A Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting on Spice FM and KTN Home. Good morning. It's 27 minutes after 8.
24/7 around.
All right, let's look at Nairobi, where cloudy conditions are going to take over the day, more or less. Highs of 24 and lows of 17. It will be overcast for most parts of today. Then taking a look into Nakuru, highs of 24 and lows of 17, and we will see cloudy conditions as well. Likely to be a showery day in Njeri. Highs of 24 and lows of 14. Eldoret is mostly cloudy, highs of 19 and lows of 12 with thunderstorms in the afternoon. Kisumu, 26 the high and lows of 18 with showers expected later on in the day. Kakamega, highs of 23 and lows of 15. It'll be a wet afternoon there. Taking a look then into Malindi, 28 the high and lows of 24. And in Mombasa, highs of 29 and lows of 24 with partly cloudy conditions through most parts of the day. Kampala, 25 degrees the high, lows of 18, mostly cloudy conditions, rain coming in parts of the afternoon. In Dar es Salaam, highs of 30 and lows of 23 with partly cloudy conditions. Joburg, still quite chilly, -2 is what is being recorded now, highs of 14 and lows of -1. 24 degrees in Lagos, and we will see partly cloudy conditions for most of the day with highs of 28 and lows of 23. All right, right in the middle of traffic hour, we're seeing that some traffic still heavy on Mombasa Road, coming in hot and heavy on Thika Road as well, getting into the CBD. It's going to take a little bit of time, but it's not as crazy as we would expect at this time. So traffic hour today has not been too perilous. Looking at other parts of the city, on Langata Road, coming in to the roundabout that takes you either to Bagathi Way or down the Greater Langata Road, not too bad either. Ngong Road, getting to the city mortuary roundabout, and then either to Valley Road or down Ngong Road into the CBD also is looking good. I don't think we have too much of drama this morning. We'll let you know what it looks like in a short while. You also too let us know what you see. Spice FM KE on Twitter.
Spice FM.
Situation Room, Kenya's biggest
Njeri.
conversation, broadcasting on Spice FM, as well as on our digital platforms, Spice FM, KE, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and on KTN Home. So we've heard from the gentleman who's the Secretary General of the Landlords and Tenants Association. And just by listening to him, basically I'm sort of feeling no wonder we are where we are.
Right. Well, it would seem that then it's no surprise then that there is no cushioning for people who have lost their livelihoods, who are out of a job, who are on forced leave, and then are thrown out of their homes. There's no way for them to go to. There's no buttress. There's nothing in terms of a cushion for them to say, all right, this is where I would go in case somebody was to help me out. Everybody else, Eric has listed them on his 10 fingers of the different people who went to government asking for some kind of relief or reprieve.
Nduh, you're such a polite person.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying, okay, I'll take it. Thanks.
No, you're really polite. I mean, when you claim to be an association whose main function is that of an arbiter or an arbitrator, and there is no evidence whatsoever of even you communicating to other party effectively so that this communication or this arbitration that you purport to actually represent takes place. You see, when you talk about lobbying, it's not calling a Harambe or a Kamkunji. There are people within government who are responsible for certain things.
Yep.
You find a way of ensuring that such people are communicated to. Tenants have their association. Landlords have their associations. And within estates. So, how difficult can it be to actually get to find out who these groupings are and how to communicate with
the
them?
residents associations, because there are very many residents associations around the country.
They are, and
they
they
even
don't
have an
communicate.
umbrella body.
Yes.
The Kenya Association of Residents Associations.
Yes, and they're the ones who talk to their fellow tenants.
Which brings me still to the issue, no wonder we're where we are.
Yeah.
Because none of them, not even Kara, speaks about the issues that are affecting their members.
No.
The associations, you could say that maybe Kara and the neighborhood associations look at everything else, the plight, the social plight, the security. But when it comes to issues of, financial distress, this is where some of these associations should now be emerging and coming out and taking leadership and saying we've got to play an advocacy role. When you don't see associations playing an advocacy role, you wonder, so why form them in the first place? What's the point of going to institute an association and all you'll do is come out and speak on behalf of yourself because you've not even consulted your membership to come up with a common position and say, this is the position we want to take?
So my mind still goes back to the easily thousands of people who have been thrown out or who face the risk of being thrown out over the next couple of months by virtue of the fact that they're no longer able to pay moving forward, or they're not able to cover their arrears. And I go to them right now because things, as usual, are going to get worse before they get better. Those who've been thrown out don't know what they're going to do. Those who may be on their last penny then don't know what they're going to do moving forward in terms of paying rent. A relief for this group of people has not been sought. It has not been sought. The only relief that we're looking at is maybe if you were paying a loan, if you're paying a mortgage of some sort, which then again we're looking at a very minute percentage of the general population. Maybe they get some reprieve because then maybe you don't have to pay your loan right now. You can look at it and doing that later. But then we're looking at a very dire situation in terms of what is going to happen to people. Where will they go? Shack up with relatives, board with a few people now for the foreseeable future. But that's what we're going to be looking at. And we're going to have to accept that. Save people going up country and staying in their rural homes, we are going to see a situation where more and more people will be kicked out because there's no relief. There's no relief that has been sought for them. There's no buttress that has been made on their behalf. There's nothing that's happening in terms of that. And if we're basic human right. Basic human right.
But do we need to have associations to address this issue?
There's no point of having associations to address
thing. I mean, you can see.
There's no point having associations to address this issue if they're not doing anything
either
anyway.
One of these three categories. You're either a homeowner, or a tenant, or an investor landlord, or you're all three. You fall somewhere within these categories. Everybody, including those in government. So this is not a conversation that really needs to have, somebody to bring the plight of landlords or tenants.
It doesn't need an association. It doesn't need an association. If we're looking at now issues of lobbying towards government, if we're looking at issues of asking for relief at the feet of government, you don't need an association to do that.
My friend, even people who live in establishments or in structures that are owned by government even they have an association there. There is no place where people live in groupings where you do not have a representative number of people within there. People who can go and champion their cause.
But we're saying in this case, the cause is not being championed.
But
No.
do we even need associations to speak about something as obvious as this?
Actually, I am actually
It's like
agreeing-
saying we need to have a food eaters association because people are going hungry.
Eric, my point exactly, I'm saying the association is not necessary.
It really isn't, because the reason
The
for which it was
tenants
put together
already
is not
understand
coming
what
through.
they need to do. They actually do not need someone. They live there. They're the answer of those problems. They understand. If this association was telling me that they're strengthening these people, and they could show exactly how it is that they're strengthening the tenants, the existing tenants association, to be able to take care of their membership, who are actually the people who live. And by the way, these people who form part of this tenancy area, they live in those estates.
Of course they do. Of course they do. Let's go to the phone lines. We're seeing people calling in. Phone lines are really beaming. 0719-012-600. Aluochi Mbakasi, good morning.
Morning.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thanks for taking my call. So first of all, I want to thank you for the hard questions you're giving that guy towards the last minute. I mean, I'm surprised he's not yet back because I was waiting for many more answers. I mean, this is the first time I've heard of such an association. I mean, they can't be blind. I mean, I love the fact that you guys said, I mean, every day you open up the news, the newspapers, one of the things that people are crying about is tenancy, not being able to afford to pay their rent, and then to add on top of that, not being able to travel, maybe to go to shags.
Yeah.
It's just fortunate that the borders were opened recently. So many people are running away just to go to shags because they couldn't survive here. I mean, that association to me is just, I don't know. For me, it's a false association, because why is this the first time that, I mean, someone like me is hearing about it? And yet you hear they have about 10,000 tenants, 16,000 landlords. I mean, that's just, for me, it feels like an organization that's just trying to get funds or something. I mean, where is the advocacy for tenants? So, I mean...
Aluoch, we're also moving the conversation further and saying the plight of tenants, the plight of landlords is basically, we're talking about the plight of Kenyans. Every Kenyan lives in a house. Either they own that house, or they have rented out that house, or they also are doing both of those, and they have another investment somewhere which they collect rent from. So must we be getting a conversation that's coming from the bottom up? Shouldn't this be something that the government already sees from data that it's receiving?
That's actually a very good point, because even, I mean, personally as a tenant, I mean, the government, I mean, the president or whatever might have said that banks can give landlords a waiver on their loans, but then that hasn't really trickled down to everybody. How are they ensuring that this is a directive that has really been taken? I mean, many people are really, really suffering. And that's why when I saw an association like that, that's where they come in. They're there to make sure that such things are actually, you know, people are accountable. Landlords are accountable, because there are so many who, they don't care. They can't even reduce, not even a fifth of the rent, nothing, not even 10%. Not even maybe garbage. Just don't pay the garbage this month. Nothing. Nothing. Not even electricity, water, something.
Yeah.
For some of us,
Thank you. Let's hear from Gideon.
That really needs to continue.
We shall continue with this. Gideon Muiti, good morning.
Yes. Good morning. My name is Honorable Gideon Muiti there. Now, associations in Kenya start in the long footing. An association in the estate should be known by the chief. He should even be a member to represent the government in that association. A representative from the MCA of the area, and probably somebody from the MP's office. So that whatever decisions and the recommendations they do are from stakeholders. Because the government is also a stakeholder in the lives of the people in various associations. But then when an association takes up and says we are an association, who is the representative of the government in that association? That's why we have the DOs, that's why we have the deputy county commissioners who should be involved. So that if like now they can petition the government to chip in and probably lower the rents, it is something that has been discussed and accepted where the government is represented.
So you're saying that these associations can actually be in a position to lobby to government?
Yes?
You're saying that these associations can actually be in a position to lobby to government on behalf of the individuals that they represent?
Yes, that is possible. That's why we have a chief. That's why we have a deputy county commissioner. They should be knowing what kind of associations are in various setups. So that the association is not a runaway institution, talking probably to the press, writing letters. It should be an association that can be engaged from where it is operating from, through the office of the MP, through the office of the deputy county commissioner. Then, if the matter can be taken up even to parliament, it is easy because it is documented.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
That's what I'm saying, sir. And thank you. This is a very nice program that you have. I've been watching it, and I'm sure it will be very informative to the communities in this country. And congratulations for coming up with this.
Asante sana, Honorable Gideon Witi. The conversation continues 0719-012-600 if you'd like to join in. This is Spice FM. This show is The Situation Room. In the room, we have Eric Latiff, Nduh Okoh, and CT Muga. We are discussing the plight of tenants and landlords, and we have to continue putting them together. Because, yes, tenants are not able to pay rent. Landlords who depend on this rent are not able to earn a living from their properties, their investments. So what is it that needs to happen to lobby them? We've been discussing in the last a couple of minutes. We had the Secretary General of the Landlords and Tenants Association, Ben Liai, who was in the studio, and the question that we're asking him is what the role of the association is, and it didn't become very clear.
Not even role, the effect.
And the effect so far.
Yes, because you're an association that represents landlords and tenants. Surely there must be some feather in your cap. You must say,
this is what we've achieved.
Since 2013.
This is what we have done. We had this issue in this area, and this is what we did in terms of resolution. This is what we did in terms of
arbitration.
Yes, and all that.
Or even awareness creation, if you actually want to say that you focused on awareness creation. Before we came in, there was this number of people who ended up in court because of not understanding their position in the tenancy agreements. But we've reduced that because we've created more awareness. We're not getting any of that.
You know what is interesting? This understanding between tenants, as I said, even when it is property that is owned by the government, even if it is owned by private individuals, low end, high end, middle end, tenants have a tendency of getting together. Even if they are homeowners and they live within a gated community, they tend to have some sort of understanding among themselves.
It's neighborhood.
Yes. Sometimes it has to do with garbage collection. It has to do with security. But they do have some understanding among themselves.
So how would we harness that then to have a unified voice that speaks on behalf of?
I was rather hoping when I heard that there was this sort of association, that this association would be working with such groups. Because then, whatever you are doing is informed. There's clarity. The people who live there, they are the ones who know what's happening. They tell you. So you are taking forward to the tenants or to the landlords association a specific issue that has been brought to your attention.
And it goes across board, because what are we talking about now? We're talking about reprieve. We're talking about a reduction in rent rates, not for eternity, but for a particular period in time. And I would expect that that's what you have institutions or organizations in those positions actually doing. Can you negotiate on somebody's behalf? Because it would be very difficult for a number of individuals to then go to landlords who clearly have the power to be able to say, okay, can we do this instead? Can we get a reprieve for a month? And on the other hand, for landlords as well, is it possible then for you to pay, 50% of what you used to pay before, so that I can remain afloat and so that you don't have to suffer? But if an association then is not carrying any of this whatsoever, then it might as well not exist.
I've seen the functions of some of these associations.
Pause City. Let's hear from Raymond in Langata. Good morning, Raymond.
Good morning, Eric. I listened keenly to your conversation with that Secretary General.
Yes.
And I even doubt whether such an association exists, because first he said that they've been in existence for years. And he also again says that they have not been able to meet because of COVID. And first, the first time that I'm hearing that these associations exist, and I've not had them taking any action on landlords. First, it's like having an association of employers and workers. And then, how do you have such kind of an organization first? And for me, I doubt even such organization exists, and I think government just come in and intervene for tenants who are not able to pay for rent, and also negotiate with them about those landlords who are not able to pay loans. Such kind of an association cannot even be able to help because they have no history. I even doubt of their membership.
You have very many doubts about them, Raymond. Thank you very much for calling in. 0719-012-600. That's the number to call. We're having the conversation about the plight of landlords, the plight of tenants, and the calls are coming in. This is Solomon in Mombasa. Good morning, Solomon.
Good morning. Yes, my contribution will be.
Yes.
We have a problem in this whole business of real estate because you don't have a body that regulates. You can have as many associations that you have, but as long as there is nobody that is regulating the kind of contact, the tenants and everything, we'll have chaos. I'll give you an example. Look at the fuel industry. It's well regulated. You have prices in Mombasa, Nairobi, Nakuru, Kisumu.
Yep.
So you have, and the prices change every now and then. So if the landlords have such a body that regulates, because rent is different in this kind of setups, Ajia in Mombasa is all over, it's different. So they're able to regulate and have strict laws in such a way that even the government can able to put an input on it.
Okay. So calling for regulation of the sector.
Yeah, because you see, the associations, these associations are there to push for tenants to have to pay on time.
Yep.
And maybe pay the penalties. But what are the rights for the tenants? Do I get enough security, water, electricity? Yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
Lighting for the house.
Get your point. Thank you very much, Solomon. Boniface in Ukunda.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for this particular program. I enjoy watching it every day for enlightening Kenyans.
Asante sana.
Yes, so I have a contribution. I think it's quite an interesting discussion. And I would say, thanks so much. I never knew such an association exists. The one that protects or lobbies for tenants' issues. That's the first time I'm hearing of it. So I would say, as regards to COVID-19 pandemic, it has to start from the government. So the government has, first of all, to cushion the landlords, because we realize that these houses are done using probably loan facilities. So it has to start from the government, cushioning the landlords, probably lowering the interest rates and giving them some better monetary terms. And then from there, we need to have now these associations for tenants coming in now so strongly to create awareness that the government has done this and that. And we expect that cushioning from the government to flow down to the tenants. So it can only be realized when we have awareness that the government has cushioned the landlords against interest rates, and it has to flow down to the tenants who are living in these facilities. Absolutely.
Thank you, Boniface. Daniel in Mombasa, good morning.
Morning to you. Hi, Eric.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. And you?
Good. Plight of tenants and landlords.
I'm very well, thank you.
Fine.
I think we have an issue with or maybe connection between the landlords and the tenants.
Yeah.
One, where I live, I have two homes in Nairobi and Mombasa. In Nairobi, I live in government houses, and currently they are saying that they're increasing their rent starting January. And if you don't if you don't sign the lease, they'll kick you out. And these are government institutions where they rent out their houses. So it's a big issue whereby even the government does not know even the same association the guy was talking about. So like the previous caller who has said, the government has to be in this association so that they can understand also what is going on. Otherwise, if the government is not involved, it will be. I don't think it will add any value at all. At all.
Good point.
That's my position.
Thank
if
you.
the government houses are being increased, so that means even the government does not understand what is going on the ground.
Well, okay, that's right. Doesn't understand or doesn't know.
It doesn't has absolutely
no
clue.
idea.
Daniel, thank you very much for your contribution. Peter in Kilifi.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Yeah, I'd just like to draw my attention to the kind of people we have in Kenya. I mean, we've seen that there have been quite a few landlords who have gone ahead and reduced the rent for their tenants. But it speaks to the moral, the moral in our society, whereby these people have been with their tenants for so long, and they know the suffering people are undergoing at this point, but they still want somebody with a big stick to tell them what to do. Charity does not begin. You don't need to be told about being, nice to somebody else. Yes, charitable, exactly. So what you have to do is we are impelled by our inner character to help out to somebody in need. The landlords we have here, I mean, it's almost as if they are inhuman, because you see, we can draw inference from some communities here in Kenya, like the Somalis or the Indians. They help each other out. They leave. You don't see Somalis or Indians going around begging in town or all that, because they form a community that helps one another. Why don't we, as Kenyans, I don't need the government to tell me to help somebody who I know is in deep trouble. That is something that should come from the inner person, from the landlords themselves.
Yeah.
There's
no need for someone to be told.
I do agree that some of the behavior that we have seen from some landlords in the manner in which they've kicked people out, has been, far less than palatable. People have been locked in. Also, all manner of things have been done to people. However, if we're looking at the other side of things, a landlord who is depending upon this rent for his or her own survival, then where would that conversation go? What needs to happen? Do you take a reduction? Do you say for the next 12 months don't? Do you take a loan? We would also look on that side of it and say, okay, so then in terms of their livelihood and sustenance, where are they supposed to get it from?
Essentially, you may be putting them in a position where they're subsidizing their tenants.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we know that the government has taken some measures. For example, when the government negotiated with the banks in terms of asking the banks to pass on some reprieve to the people who have borrowed from them. If you are a landlord and you have some debt with the banks, then you can also go and negotiate. So there's already that kind of conversation that should land at your doorstep somewhere. So it's about time that these organizations came out to speak. It's about time that landlords came out to also express themselves, because you see, they're being passed on as people who are just completely
unscrupulous.
Yes, unscrupulous and
But the
heartless.
question you'd like to ask is, when we hear these cases, do they comprise a minority or a majority? I don't think it's a majority.
Of people who are being mistreated.
No, the symbiotic relationship that tenants have with their landlords is such that the landlords understand very, very clearly
who is living in their homes.
They understand exactly what role the tenants play in their lives and livelihoods.
At 5 minutes to 9 o'clock, it's a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation on Spice FM and KTN Home. We'll be saying goodbye to our viewers on KTN Home shortly. Before that, let's tell you about this portal by KPA. This is kpa.co.ke/Captain Cargo, KARGO.
Right, so we know that now your equipment, or rather your cargo, is on its way, but there's certain things that need to happen, and you can find all of this on the portal. So we know that the KPA pilot, as we want to call him, and has taken all this information and has put it into the system and has made sure that it has been sent to finance for billing. And that billing comes to you as the customer. You're able to make the payment, and then what you know as your shipping agent then receives the dues and then makes the deposit. The cargo is offloaded and loaded onto the vessel and it departs. I'll then look at the final stages of this later. But again, seamless operation, and this information is available on the portal so that you can see just how things are operating.
Thank you very much to all our audience on KTN Home. Thank you for tuning in on Monday, Tuesday, and today, Wednesday. We'll talk to you again next week on Monday. This is the situation room. The conversation continues. The show doesn't end until 10 o'clock. It's now 4 minutes to 9 o'clock. We're on 94.4 in Nairobi. We're in Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi. You can continue watching us on www.spicefm.co.ke. Well, yeah, the live stream continues as well on our social media handles, Spice FM KE on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. In the next hour, we bring the conversation back to education and what's happening in the country.
Right, we're talking to Wilson Sisson this morning, and it's interesting because right off the bat, he said, look, why are we looking for options? Why are we looking for options when it was very clear what the government has said in terms of what is going to happen with students when they go back to school next year? So it should be hunkering down, buckling down, and parents looking for options for their kids. But like we said, we're going to be talking to him in the 9 o'clock hour, so we'll find out what he has to say about that.
And the institution that now has been allowed to happen.
Yes.
And what does that mean? Okay. City, as we come to the top of the hour, what is today's proverb?
The night has ears.
The night has ears.
Even if you think that it's because it's dark, the things you say and plan and plot are secretive. Sorry.
What happens in the night will come out.
It'll come to the open in due course.
Okay. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Keep it right here. The next conversation is about education. We'll be speaking with the Kenya National Union of Teachers Secretary General Wilson Sisson, who is also a nominated member of Parliament. Good morning. It's now coming up to 9 o'clock.
Let's look at the situation on the roads right now. At this moment, it seems that it's Thika Road all the way to town from NYS. It's moving slowly though, but let's see what it looks like in a short while. Right in the middle of traffic hour. That hasn't ended just yet. All right, looking at other parts of the city. Lunga, we already know it's not moving, guys. This is because the road has been closed. I know. They didn't tell us before. I'm very sorry. But this means that you have to find another way out. And this is all the way from Kenpoli towards House of Manji. It's not moving because the road has been closed and everybody is trying to turn around. So if you're going in that direction, please know it's been closed. You can't use it. All right. Let's look at other parts of the city. Thika Road, like we said, is moving slowly. Mombasa Road, it should have opened up now going towards Uhuru Highway. And it looks like that will be just fine. All right. Apart from that, it doesn't look too bad. Spice of MKE, let's know what you see and let's see how we can at least make sure we get out of traffic hour in good stead.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have
And thank you very much for keeping
Muga,
it right here on Spice
researcher.
FM at 94.4 Nairobi, live streaming on www.spicefm.co.ke. Let's talk about education. You know, when now we know that schools are not going to reopen, at least for basic education, until next year. And very many people are talking about the plight of the students. The Standard today on page 2 and page 3 is dedicating some space to talk about the plight of teachers, especially those in private schools. Page 3 has a photo here of a teacher called Dixon Karoki, who's a private school teacher who's now working at a salon. And it says it's no pay, no gain for teachers in all private schools. And page 2 has a whole discussion here about the pandemic that is bringing the city schools to their knees. 35,930. That's the number of private schools that we have in the country. The number of teachers who are employed by these private schools, 155,000. The number of support staff who are employed by these private schools, 133,000. All of these people are right now without an income because schools are shut, and the way that private schools make money is by you paying school fees. And this is it. So what is it, the plight of these teachers? What's the plight of the people who have invested in these businesses? What is the plight of the students as well? And was it a good move to ask to remain and say, let's remain closed? And we were speaking to the CAS in the Ministry of Education, Zach Kenodia, who was telling us, look, it's all about the first thing and the core function of a government is protection of lives and property.
It brings to mind, Eric, the question is, what has the government done? Or what ought it to have done that it hasn't done? It's all good and well to talk about the roles of the government, but you cannot talk about the role in a vacuum and not discuss what hasn't been done to ensure that this same safety that he was talking about is actually put in place.
All those safety measures.
Yes. They are not very lofty safety measures. They're not very... And remember, the discussion veered off from just schools, and we said there are people who are supposed to sit the exams this year.
Right.
Okay? They are a fraction of the students who are supposed to be in school. Can there be a consideration for them? Because if you are saying there's a huge problem with letting all students back in school, but what about just this specific group who are supposed to be sitting for the exams? Because I look at it this way. Talking about where do they go after this, should that not be a different problem altogether after they've sat for the exams? Should
Let
that
them
not
write
be,
the exam first.
Yes, should that not be? Because you're compounding it. Because if they do not sit for the exams and they repeat, it means everybody else is repeating. It's not as though this problem is going to go away because they don't sit for the exams.
Yeah.
No.
And that's why they arrived at the decision that everybody repeats.
You know.
So is that a good or a bad decision? Let's bring in Wilson Sossion. He's the Secretary General of the Kenya National Union of Teachers and also a nominated Member of Parliament. Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning to you.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Very good. Welcome to the Situation Room.
The rest of Kenyans in collectively fighting the pandemic that has distorted our livelihood.
Good. Now, Wilson, you heard, of course, and you are aware of what the Ministry of Education has said, that basic education has lost a year. And
yeah, and it is not only in Kenya. This is a global phenomenon.
Yep.
With the spread of this pandemic and with the very devastating effects, and with evidence that any crowding will lead to the spiking of the spread of the disease. Schools are potential centers of spreading of the disease, according to the reports of medical experts and global government advice not to open schools unless there is evidence that the curve has been flattened, and the scientists are very clear that a country must register 14 continuous days of substantial reduction of cases before we can rethink of resuming schools. And that is why in Kenya, avoidance of doubt from the analysis of medical experts, the scientific projection, the peak of this virus will be in the months of August and September. And the warnings are very clear that if we open schools in the month of September, then the virus will spike and we might have minimum of 30,000 Kenyans dying. So we have to bite the bullet of postponing resumption of learning. And this one must be understood by everyone. It is postponement of learning in all basic education institutions. And so when we resume in January, the issue of students repeating classes should not arise. No, nobody is repeating any class. We are picking and starting from where we left and continuing with the program uniformly across all classes, equitably. So a child in Form 4 and that in Form 1 are the same, and they all begin from where they left and where they stopped.
So Wilson, I mean, just from the interpretation that quite a number of people have had of this, what we are saying essentially is that whereas it may have been said before that all that you had learned, whether it was for 3 months, has been lost.
Yeah, that one now, that should not be the problem of anybody. That now becomes the problem of teachers and government in terms of curriculum implementation. You all know that's the work of teachers. And teachers will be able to take through the learners the work that they've done so that you reconnect. So lesson review and content review is part of teaching. And teachers will be able to do that. I urge everybody, don't take over the professional role of teachers. We shall resume teaching knowing that these learners have been out of action for a long time. They must have lost content. And therefore, we will be doing not just teaching, but revision of many topics. And therefore, the teaching style and teaching delivery after we resume will be different. It will not be ordinary teaching. And that is why we will need to prepare teachers for teaching delivery or pedagogy of what we call the COVID-19. Because we shall be teaching children who are anxious, children who have been out for a long time, children who have forgotten even the content. We have lost content completely, and we have to bring back the content. And so the teaching approach will be different, and we are prepared for it. So those are the challenges that come with prolonged school break out of the inevitable situation.
Mrs.
And that should not worry everybody.
Are you saying that all schools in this country were not involved in any learning whatsoever?
Pardon?
My question is, do I hear you saying that all the schools in this country, primary and secondary, were not involved in any form of learning at all?
Very clearly, schools were closed on the 15th of March. And if there have been any other activities of learning, whether online by some schools, we know the international schools have been conducting online learning, and some private schools, that's a different matter. The law and the phase of the program recognizes that learning stopped on the 15th of March. And so when it resumes, we shall resume from where we stopped, regardless of whether some institution conducted learning using other alternative modes. That is the principle of equity and access. And that is where we will begin from, regardless of any activity that goes on. Yes.
It sounds very draconian from where I sit, because and it sounds to me like something that is being propagated to hide the government's inability to actually cater for learning beyond what we call traditional classroom learning.
This is not the time. We are in what we call education during crisis. And it would be very wrong to accuse anybody, and even to accuse the government. I would vote for what the government is doing. This is a crisis that can lead to near deaths of people. And therefore, we do what we must do. and we have done what we have to do. The priority, topmost priority now, so that those who are safe and healthy cannot leisurely talk carelessly about what is happening. The government is grappling with safety and health of teachers and learners, and this we have engaged through a democratic process. And I think I commend the government of Kenya for allowing the sector to debate freely, unlike what we are seeing in other countries, where governments are forcing opening of schools, and we've heard the research of the virus and death of students. So right now, the environment in which we are is delivering education during crisis, and we must take decisions that are sound, decisions that are guided scientifically. And so, fundamentally, learning in all institutions was suspended from the 15th of March.
Yes.
And remains suspended until January. We shall be meeting to review as a sector. This is the business of the sector. And we urge Kenyans and the rest of the of the citizens not to over-politicize and step into even areas that is not within their ambit in terms of law, like teaching. Teaching is the business of teachers. And we shall resume teaching at a time when we shall be told to do so, and when it will be safe to do so.
So are you saying, Mr. Sosion, that...
Therefore, fundamentally, the actions that have been taken by government are right, and we support as teachers. Right now, let us focus in dealing with the COVID and ensuring that learners are safe at home, and so the households should ensure that children are meaningfully engaged in different activities in their own homes, where it is possible to conduct alternative modes of learning in their homes. Let them do so. It's democratic, but we resume in January, and we shall be able to fix everything.
Okay, so Mr. Sosion, now you talked about engagement of students at home by their parents. We also heard the CS talk about home tuition. And he actually said that parents can actually get in touch with schools and teachers and find out how that can be done. What do you think about that?
Now, what the minister is offering is that, and you see there is democracy in education, that you are free to guide any form of learning within your homes. All of us, we've been raised in African households. Mm-hmm. And we know all our African households has a strong attachment with education. And there is the home role of parents. That is what the minister is talking about. He's not saying this is cast in law, you must do A, B, C, D. If you can't, you don't need to bother yourself. Engage children in other meaningful home programs. Mm-hmm. That's what we call informal curriculum, like activities, engaging children in meaningful activities, and also encouraging them not to forget about the academic work. And this is where teachers come in. Teachers are on duty throughout. And if we are consulted by students and we are able to monitor what our students are doing using any remote means, that is allowed.
So which one is it? Which is it?
It's just tuition.
So what are we saying here? That you can have a combination of engagement so that you're engaged on the home level, but also engaged so that you don't really lose out, which is the fear that a lot of parents have, that my children might not, be in touch, with academics by the time these 6 months is over.
One simple word. The parents should not be so mad and obsessed with that there must be academic and their children are losing. That is rule number one. No child is losing. Whether they engage in academics or they don't, no child is losing. Mm-hmm. We shall resume from where we will be. But you are free to encourage your children to do their own home reading and academic work where it works. And where you can consult teachers, you are free to do so. Mm-hmm. But that is not a program, an official program of the ministry. Mm-hmm. It's just an encouragement. Yeah. And therefore, we don't need to debate a lot about this.
Mr. Sosion,
let the children stay at home, be safe. Where they can engage in learning, let them do so. Where they can't, they don't need to bother much.
What do
we
you
shall-
say? What do you say about the proposal? And I'm sure that this was not in the proposal that Nat had presented to the task force.
Yeah, it is not in the proposal, and therefore it is not. It is not.
You haven't
really
heard my question.
formulated. Yes.
My question is a bit different. It's with regards to resumption of classes for the candidate classes, Standard 8 and Form 4. There has been that, and it's still been pushed even by other education experts, that you could have allowed the Standard 8s and Form 4s to resume classes and sit their exams, even if they're sitting their exam next year, early next year, but let them go back to school. What do you say to
Very
that?
attentively. So this is a matter we agreed. And looking at it, we stopped schooling, learning in the month of March.
Yep.
National exams were not going to be conducted in the month of March. It was going to be conducted in the month of October, after continuous teaching for another period from March to October.
Yep.
So what we are talking about here is stoppage of teaching and learning. We are not yet there to discuss about national examination. And therefore, this obsession by Kenyans and households about national exams is the segment coming at the tail end of implementation of the curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, we cannot bring in the exams and bring in examination classes. Furthermore, students in class 8 and Form 4 are human beings. You bring them back to school, at the peak of the virus, they will still be affected. They are human beings.
They're exposed.
And therefore, for us, and we have said very clearly as a union, exams are not a ticket to heaven, that you must pause examination classes to come in when the country is not ready. The exams should remain at the right time, at the tail end of the teaching of class 8 and Form 4,
Yep.
when all classes shall have resumed equitably. What we have agreed here is that there must be equity.
Okay.
A student in class 8 waiting to sit for exams is the same as a student in class 1, because all of them, their curricula was stopped in the month of March, and it must all resume at the same time. Furthermore, we would create one problem, that if you bring in examination classes and you take them through and they sit for exams, we will have a double intake in Form 1.
Yep.
And we'll have a huge enrollment. That will be, and there will be a general confusion across the board in terms of the curriculum. That does not work. And we have looked at it, the timetabling, the movement of students, and we cannot risk to have double intake in Form 1, which the country is not ready for. And therefore, all those suggestions are untenable. And we tell Kenyans, leave the professional work to the professional.
There is the other suggestion by professionals who have said, okay, instead of saying that if you are in Standard 7, you still stay in Standard 7, you can move to Standard 8. And the teachers, because they are professionals, they would know how to compress the syllabus for Standard 7 and Standard 8 and be able to offer that learning.
We have seen as a union, these are the argument that was there no other alternative. There should have been, these are the alternative of promoting all the students to the next class, and then we get back to make up for the loss. Some countries have even done that. But you see, that is what we call intellectual dishonesty. We have the freedom as a country to decide what is best for our education as a sovereign state. And we have discussed this at the sector level, and we have agreed. That one we cannot cheat Kenyans. That, of course, we promote. It's not about promotion. It's about coverage of curriculum content. And therefore, beginning from where we stopped, by calling Form 1 who stopped learning on the 15th of March, they will continue covering Form 1 content, and they remain Form 1 until they cover the Form 1 work. That is when they'll be promoted to the next class. It will be wrong. It's practically wrong to think that you can promote, say, for example, a Form 3 class that has covered only mathematics work for 1.5 months of that year, and you promoted them to Form 4, and you want them to cover Form 4 work in 1 year, and also to cover the undone 75% work of Form 3. You will create a problem, psychological torture and things that do not work. Let us not experiment And when people are putting forward theories that have not been tested, and they call it professional observation, we say that is fundamentally wrong. And therefore, we begin from where we stopped and we will move. And fundamentally, if we resume normally in the month of January, for us, we see exams being conducted in the month of July and August.
Yeah.
And the academic year ending around that time. And we might begin a new academic year in the month of September 2021. And that is how it is. So we begin from where we stop, move the curriculum, end it where it ends, if this virus shall have been suppressed. And I think we should also prepare Kenyans and everybody and the world. Because right now, globally, over 1 billion children are unable to attend schools. Even governments that are trying to reopen schools, they are being forced to close. And I think let us not look at ourselves in isolation and push the very, very agenda that we are trying to think about within our households and within our social networks in the name of professionals and all these other bits. Let us look at the global trend of these issues. And we've seen the president of the U.S. for the last couple of days, he has started wearing a mask. And it is very clear that the U.S. is unable to reopen schools at the end of summer. That debate. So this is a global debate. And I think we should open Kenya to see what is the trends that are happening globally, the best practices. And I think what has gone on in Kenya in the education sector is the most democratic, the most sober engagement, and the decisions are the best. It is in the best interest of the health of learners and teachers, such that when we resume in the month of January, all the children shall be available around, healthy and alive, and will begin afresh. These are the debates of the vices should just be dealt with by the households.
Right, Mr. Sosion, in as much as you've talked about other countries in the world and how they are also dealing with this.
I've got a session in Parliament. Thank you. I've got a session in Parliament, and I pleaded that you'd allow me not more than 10 minutes, and I've got to prepare.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Wilson Sosion, as a nominated member of Parliament and Secretary General of the Kenya National Union of Teachers. We'll have another conversation shortly, soon. Have a good day. So, you've heard the man. He has come out strongly to say he is completely behind.
He's a government apologist.
Now he's become a government apologist.
He is a government apologist because even some of the things he's saying that the entire world is following a similar trend, it is not true. Learning doesn't have to be classroom learning. Learning simply means you find a means by which information that comprises learning can be relayed to the student.
Which is very textbook, CT.
Which was
we have discussed this many times. What are those options?
Baba, the options were not put in place by the government at a time when they should have, so we don't have them.
All right, so now let's deal with the reality today as we are today.
Reality as we have them today is this. The issue that they keep revolving around, anyone who wants to apologize, is safety of the students. Okay, let's look at safety, health safety. How is the government handling this matter of safety and health with regards to COVID?
There you go. You go. You're just throwing all that on the
I'm not throwing it. I'm asking. The emphasis they say is health. Let's see how is the government handling this health matter?
No, answer the question, CT. So this is.
But have I not just answered it?
You have not answered the question.
Okay, ask it again. Question. Ask it again.
We do not have those measures that you're saying the government should have put in place many years before.
Eric.
To ensure that learning continues in the event people are not able to go into a classroom. We don't have them. So what is it that you...
Actually, it's not that we don't have them, Eric.
What is it that could happen
It's not that we don't have them, Eric. It's not that we don't have it. We've had radio learning even during this COVID times.
And we have discussed radio learning.
We've discussed it.
Even
all I'm saying is this.
Had radio learning, it is not learning, it is tuition.
Eric,
it is not...
if there is... Look... My argument arises from the points that were being made to push this idea that everything that could be done has been done. I'm saying no. Even with the limited resources we have, a lot could still have been done. I said from the beginning, it's a cop-out. So make a blanket statement and a blanket ruling.
A lot? So just give 2. Let's not ask you to give 10. Just
what is so difficult about expanding radio learning? So that it actually becomes a process by which...
Explain how it could be expanded.
If you already have a radio program that caters for a few classes, right? What is to stop you from ensuring that you have them for a longer period? Because radio learning used to be just a certain segment of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was assumed it was augmenting classroom learning.
Okay.
Now there's no classroom learning.
Okay.
What is to stop you from expanding? Now,
radio
ever
learning,
since
as it happens today, City, starts from 8 a.m. and ends at 4 p.m. Today, as it happens.
Eric, but it's segmented
In the
because
COVID
it is
period.
still segmented because
Of course it's segmented
it
because you're
deals
talking about
with
one
different
frequency.
classes. I am saying so that it is beneficial to any normal classroom learning. Not this one. This one is segmented.
Okay, so tell me, how would that happen?
How many? What
You
language
have
do you want me to use,
frequency.
Eric?
English.
But I'm
Because you are not
explaining it.
using English. You have one frequency, 94.4.
Must you have one frequency?
You have 94.4. All right? So, explain to me how you're going to use 94.4 to teach 8 classes.
Eric, I've asked the question. The government controls frequencies, Chief. If the idea is to expand learning using radio, and you're saying the frequency you're suggesting might be the bottleneck, why limit yourself to one frequency? History, this frequency. Maths, this frequency. For this class, this frequency. It's something that the government not only has, but can create.
How many are they using right now?
I have absolutely no clue.
Okay, it starts from there. It is using more than one channel. And they keep publishing.
It is you who kept saying they're using one.
They're using one channel. They're sending out the same information on different channels.
Signals
radio is on this.
from the same channel.
On
It's signals.
on TV and various channels, they have other programs that they are running, but you cannot cover the 8. They don't.
That's
not
really
doing the
my
8.
point. What makes you think you can't?
Because you have one household, one radio in a household. I can be broadcasting here on 16 channels, and there are 5 children in that home. They will
And it
have
would not be beneficial
one
to all of
radio.
them.
Eric.
Reality.
No, reality is that radios are not as expensive as we're trying to make them.
So we are telling people right now in
Yes.
COVID time to go and buy a radio.
We are saying right from the very beginning.
People who are not able to pay rent.
Eric, if you want to find a solution, you will. If you want to create roadblocks, it's even easier.
As it says, if you say you can't or you say you can, you're right.
Sorry?
If you say you can't and you say you can, you're right. In both instances, you're right.
It's just a question of the path you want to follow. You see, we cannot argue, at least I cannot argue and say that enough has been done when I can clearly see enough hasn't been done. The argument that keeps revolving around the need to keep people safe, it is a noble idea and they should and they must. It's a mandate that the government has. But to say that all this learning is purely because they want to ensure people are safe, all right, they're already at home. People are trying to do the best they can under the circumstances. What is this thing that you can say the government has done conclusively, resoundingly, that guarantees that people stay healthy, and apart from telling us what to do?
I'd even say that this is a perfect opportunity to use this time that has been presented to even think or implement more creative ways that would be able to help in circumstances in which we find ourselves in. But you know what's going to happen? Unfortunately, everybody's going to sit and rest on their elbows, and come December, then we'll shake off the dust and say, oh, okay, school is starting in January. Back to start. Whereas these 6 months could have been used to sort out this thing now that we're quibbling about now. To say that in an instance where something like this rears its ugly head again, what can we do? But the time is not going to be used properly. It's not going to be used productively. I can tell you that. This is what it is, a perfect opportunity to come up with ways to sit down with those people who are sitting there. Use it. That's what I'm saying. In the meantime, use the opportunity to create
Children
something
stay
that's
at home. As you're working on
They're already at home.
They're already there anyway.
They're already at home.
That's what they were saying.
They're already at home. But to actually argue and say that everything has been done, resoundingly no, not everything has been done.
Who has said everything has been done?
You.
Did I say that?
Yes.
CT.
I'm quoting you. You, Eric, said everything
has been done. 9:30. It's a situation room is Kenya's biggest conversation. Shortly, we take a look at weather and traffic.
All right, still overcast partly in most parts of Nairobi. Mostly cloudy conditions at 16 degrees. Likely see an afternoon of rain, highs of 21 and lows of 13. In Njeri, it's cloudy, and likely to rain all the way until Thursday morning. 20 degrees high and lows of 13. In Nakuru at 17 degrees, it's mostly cloudy. Thunderstorms forecasted for the afternoon with highs of 21 and lows of 12. It's mostly cloudy in Eldoret at 16 degrees. Thunderstorms also forecasted there, highs of 19 and lows of 12. In Kisumu, 22 degrees and mostly cloudy. Rain expected later on with highs of 26 and lows of 19. And 19 degrees is what it is in Kakamega and mostly cloudy. We'll see highs of 23 and lows of 15 with rain showers in the afternoon. It's partly cloudy in Malindi at 28 degrees. We'll see highs of 29 and lows of 24. 26 degrees in Mombasa and showers expected soon. Highs of 28 and lows of 24. It's 21 degrees in Kampala. We'll see highs of 25 and lows of 18 with showers in the afternoon. It's coming down in droves in Dar es Salaam already. It's light, but it'll get heavier as the day goes by. Highs of 29 and lows of 23. Still rather chilly in Johannesburg at 2 degrees. We'll see highs of 14 and lows of 1. Whereas it's mostly sunny conditions. It's mostly sunny in Lagos at 24 degrees. We'll see highs of 28 with showers expected anytime now. Looking into Paris, it's cloudy, and at 17 degrees, we'll see a high of 23 and lows of 16. 14 degrees in London, and partly cloudy conditions, highs of 19 and lows of 14. And finally, coming right about to 2 a.m. in New York, clear skies, and when the sun does come up, it'll be clear, highs of 27 and lows of 21. In most parts of the city now, the traffic that was on Thika Road seems to have dissipated quite some. You can get around without much of an issue in and out of the CBD. Mombasa Road still an issue on inbound now. A lot of people, we know that today is the day that most local flights will resume, and so that means that there will be some traffic inbound. We already see evidence of that on Mombasa Road, likely to be that way for most parts of the day. Apart from that, it looks really good. Industrial area still is going to be a bit of an issue with the closure of Lunga Lunga Road, so plan your journey in advance, knowing that that particular road has been closed for as long as we don't know how. But if you get stuck somewhere, do let us know. Spice FM, KE.
Join the conversation as well by commenting on our social media handles, Spice FM, KE on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter and Instagram. And also you can call in 0719-012-600. I was pleasantly surprised to hear Wilson Sossion speaking so vociferously in support of Professor Magoha's announcement.
Things do change.
And saying this has been very democratic. This is one decision that has been arrived at democratically by listening to all stakeholders. Just last month, or was it 2 months ago, Wilson Sossion was going around the country talking about how this process is not democratic because they were not included in the task force that was advised to advise the CS on schools resumption. But be that as it may, he says, look, what the CS for Education has announced, what the government has said is the number one thing is we closed schools in March because of COVID-19. And the reason why we were closing schools in March is not because parents, it was because students were going to school and we wanted to remove their exposure to COVID-19. COVID-19 is still here with us. All professionals, medical professionals are saying, look, we are seeing the number of cases rising and we are likely to peak around August, September. If we talk about reopening schools around that time, then we'll be exposing the children to the risk that we were shutting the schools for in the first place. So let's forget about that. Learning stopped at this point. He has introduced that whole debate of the semantics. Are we repeating a year? He's saying it's not repeating. Repeating now, if you think about it, is you've done standard 8 and then you didn't qualify and then you go back to standard 8 and learn again.
Mm-hmm.
So he's basically saying we shall resume from where we
Picking up
stopped.
where we left off.
Yep.
Right?
He is right.
Mm.
He is right. They're not repeating.
Mm.
But that really wasn't the discussion. You see, the discussion, as far as I'm concerned, was you cannot go to class. We've got that.
Yep.
The health concerns, we've got that even clearer.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Because this country doesn't just educate children on one educational system. There are other systems that are functioning quite well because of the nature of those schools. There are parents who can actually afford to give the children the equipment that is required for this online learning. And they've been not just learning, people have been sitting exams.
Exams, right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, their life is going on.
Yeah.
Even with the 844 system, there are schools where children have been learning. Morning, same timetable of schools, but again, it's online learning. Now, the disparity is what really gets my goat. It needn't be. It doesn't mean that every parent has to have a computer or has to have internet, but it is possible for parents to have a radio.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
And I'm saying, if you apply a little thought to ensuring, not to finding a way not to have education, but to continue applying thought as to what else ought we to, and Nduh got it right. The problem we have is the opportunity. It's here with us and doesn't seem to be coming to an end soon. Is this not the perfect opportunity to say, okay, folks, this one, even this learning we are saying we might resume in January, it might not happen. So if let's say it doesn't happen, and the likelihood is that it will not happen, what do we do so that we actually have learning taking place? I don't hear that conversation.
Right.
This is my problem.
It would be detrimental to say, to see come January. I mean, look, we can speculate and do all sorts of things, but the possibilities of so many things still are with us. It would be very sad to see come January, say, okay, we're going to take another 3 months until March and let's see how things will be. It would be very, very sad that we would not have been able to come up with a strategy that would be able to step
For a
up
whole
learning.
year, we will not have come up with something
There you go.
plausible to
And
ensure that.
It's interesting that we talked about the fact that this is affecting other countries in the world where people have said go back to school and then had to have pulled back on their decision. But guess what? There are still, in this same world, other countries who had already put things in place and are saying, okay, so we're not going to have optimum learning. However, we are not going to have a complete break from learning. It can still continue
I hear
because
you
of things
guys.
that we have put in place beforehand to make sure that there's no disruption
You're
as such.
absolutely right. You're correct. It's true that we should be having this other conversation. Okay? Now, what should the government be doing to ensure that this doesn't happen? What lessons can they apply now? What can they be trying out now to ensure that, in future, we have a smoother transition in case this thing happens? That conversation is, maybe it's happening, but we are not hearing the conversation now. And that is true. It's a big concern. What has been reported recently, and remember the Standard yesterday had a whole coverage bringing in experts. They were saying that, no, we ought to be having students going to school this year.
Going to school or learning,
Going to school. A whole professor, the dean of MKU, was saying, take back the standard 8s and the Form 4s. Others have said, allow some students to go back to school and continue learning. Others are even arguing that, yes, you can roll out some learning now as it happens, right? And I am stuck because, to me, those are two different conversations. One is what should be happening now in terms of the students who are not in school now, what learning should be continuing now. And the other one is what should the ministry be doing now in the background to sort out issues.
Given our capacity to manage the health issues, no, it is not wise to have children going to school. Meaning all children go to school? No.
Standard 8s and Form 4s going to school?
That should be considered.
Then what happens to Form 1 next year?
Look, whether they go to school or not, that problem will still be there.
No, next year there will not be a problem from ones.
Eric, allow me to just speculate here very, very wildly. This COVID is not something that is very predictable in terms of how long it's going to be with us. In terms of it spiking and what have you, we're getting a handle of it and we're figuring out during the cold season, during this, it'll spike. But come January, we may be exactly where we are right now.
Yeah.
So isn't it better for us to start thinking ahead and saying, okay, folks, let's take the view that this thing may be with us in January. So all these things that we need to do, let's start doing them now.
Yeah, it would be my hope that there's somebody sitting somewhere. There's a group of people, technocrats, bureaucrats that we talk about in this ministry or even outside, sitting thinking that this would be the way in which we should go, should something
Or there are
happen.
bureaucrats who think about those things.
It would be
They
great
are.
then if the thought then now becomes action and it's something that actually brought to the fore and implemented. It would be wonderful, so that we don't have ourselves speculating again in January.
So are we in agreement that for now, students stay at home?
For now?
Yes.
It's a government directive. What are you
Until
going to do?
December.
First of
No,
school don't have to agree on what they told you. Stay at home.
Yeah, no. It's about agreeing, not accepting. Are we in agreement that it makes sense for students to stay at home now?
It does.
In view of all
It does.
parameters that we see.
Oh, that's not even a question. Absolutely.
It does.
Okay,
Yeah, for
so
sure.
now let's talk about, so what else should the government be doing to ensure that we do not have this kind of issue? Should we find ourselves in the same kind of situation in January? What else? What are these things that the government could do and roll out?
And even
you
if
talked
they-
about
yes.
expanding, for example, and
Radio
you're right.
coverage and
The government is in control of the frequencies.
It is.
So we can say that, okay, we have, rolled out this frequency. So you can, for standard 1s, you're on 94.4, standard 2s, you're on 94.8, on standard 3s, you're 96.0, like that. All right? And offer the same kind of learning to different groups. Now let's go into the other side of it. At the student side, what do they require for them to access that learning?
I do not have the perfect solution. All I was doing was suggesting something that to me sounds practical. I am certain that the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development and other agencies that deal with such educational matters have made suggestions and have plans and have figured out what they think could work. I don't doubt that for a single second. There's even a space for teachers to come in, apart from just teaching, in suggesting what could be done, because these are the people who are involved in teaching on a daily basis. So this is something they know. They actually understand it better than any of us do. Now, I am not saying their views hasn't been taken. I'm saying if they have been taken, we do not see even an attempt in a discussion to implement them. Now, so long as I'm in the dark, I am going to speak like someone in the dark.
Maybe they've come up with, solutions or suggestions that are not practical. There is that possibility as well.
In this country, it's more likely they're not politically correct, not that they're not practical.
Zachary in Nakuru, good morning.
Oh, good morning, guys.
Good morning.
I hope everyone is keeping safe.
We are.
Thank you, Zachary. We are.
And now these days you are having very, very, very critical discussions. And
Are you saying that previously we were not?
No. No, as COVID bites, I mean, you are going deep, improving the making the show even much more better. Yeah? That's what I meant. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Now, now let me. There's somebody who drew to me a WhatsApp caption, and I wish I had your numbers. I would have forwarded to you. Yeah, and it says that in times of war, you do not insist on having your freedom. You give it willingly so that you survive to see another day. In times of a war, you do not insist on your children going to school, but you pray, you consistently pray that the government does not forcefully enlist them to be young soldiers. Yeah, this is the thing, Mr. Eric. Let us not make. I will repeat what Mr. Sosioni said, that education and you doing exams is not a ticket to heaven. Yeah. It is a way of making us, much better, and try to make us see the world in some other light. Let me tell you, and I agree with what Mwalimu has said there, that we do not know. No one has told us that this COVID-19 sent us a letter and it told us that by January I'm going to be done with you guys on Earth, and I'm not going to be there. You see, the way things are going, let us just play. Let us just play. Leave alone going to school, even going outside to buy sugar or whatever. It may be very hard
even to us parents to go to the shops because we don't know. And going by the trajectory of the numbers, as we are seeing them,
Mm-hmm.
In fact, we are even the World Health Organization head wonders that we are headed for very, very, very dark times,
Mm.
and therefore, we do not even need the government to tell us that this is not the right time to go to whatever. And let me ask you very quickly, suppose you on the 15th of March, you are digging, on a piece of road,
Mm.
and the government said, "Oh, you guys, we have been told that COVID is even in the soil, so stop digging, stop where you are now, okay?" And then probably in August, they tell us, "Oh, now the COVID has been shown not to be in the soil, so go back to digging." I ask you a very simple question, Where would you go to start digging? Would you say that now because
the government has said?
You will go to where you stopped, then continue, So I agree with you, Mr. Sosioni.
Asante.
Let us consider this academic year lost. We are not going to promote anybody to the next grade, so that we say now last year he was in grade 1 and now he's in grade. No. We are going to stop from where we started, and we don't need the government to insist on that.
Asante. Thank you very much, Zachary.
Good day, guys.
Thanks, Zachary.
Good day, Zachary.
Thank you.
Okay.
Situation Room, it's Kenya's biggest conversation. Very many comments also coming in on social media. Bernard Masika says, as a teacher, I totally agree with the Honorable Sosion on this one. Suspending learning was not only the best option, but the only option. It's good to be realistic and practical. Mwalimu City on this one, no. I don't know what he's saying, no.
See, it's a free country.
Mwalimu City, no. Anyway, as we talk about that, let's also talk about the KPA portal. This is www.kpa.co.ke/Captain Cargo, and cargo is KARGO. So this morning we've been looking at the processes of clearing a vessel to dock at the port, let's say the port of Mombasa in this particular case, because it's bringing some PPEs for CT Muga into the country. Where are we so far? The processes that we've looked at.
Yeah, so it's interesting you say that, because it's not just the cargo that's coming, but the vessel also has to be cleared. So then for you to also know, how your stuff essentially is getting here. So we're almost done. And so the cargo is offloaded and it's loaded onto now the vessel that would bring it to you. Operations information is sent for the preparation of the final port dues and something called Steve Doring bills. Be interesting to know exactly what that is. Shipping agent then logs the biller direct portal and retrieves the bills to finalize payment. All this is going on simultaneously as what we saw yesterday, where now you get your slip and it's loaded onto a truck and then it goes towards the gate. This is also happening at the same time, so that your papers then are clear for you to then get your precious cargo onto your truck, and then you may go to Muhoroni.
Steve Doring ni kupakua na kupokea.
Clearing, it's actually what you call cargo handling.
Voila.
Yes.
Could have said cargo handling,
Cargo
but
handling.
okay.
Just guys use the, sailors' names.
Right.
10
Think
minutes
like
to 10.
a sailor.
Completely.
Okay.
10 minutes to 10. Remember, you can access this information on a portal. This is kpa.co.ke/Captain Cargo. Good morning. All right. So, what are the options for students and teachers during this time? And what are the options for the Ministry of Education and the education experts at KICD?
If we look at what parents are thinking, I mean, because there were very many sentiments that came out here that, there was the silent yet heavy hope that parents would have said, okay, let's take a break, because then you wouldn't have to look for school fees, which is a very heavy burden for a lot of people. All right. Then you say, okay, really, I would rather that my children be at home and safe than out there in school, because we don't know exactly how they could be infected when it comes to COVID. But then there's also the fear that parents would think that their children would lose academically after having been home for such a long period of time. We know that the holiday normally starts mid-October and they're at home for 2.5 months anyway. We know that. However, they've been out of school since March, and they will a number of parents are quite concerned that there would be a loss when it came to some kind of learning. Which is why you hear that a lot of parents are now asking the question, so what do we do now that we're at home? What do we do? How do we engage these children? And it's a very valid concern. How do we engage them to make sure that they're still with their wits about when it comes to education and learning? So do we hire a private teacher? Do we still contact the school? What do we do? So to keep them engaged on matters home, I understand, is very important. But there's an element of the academics that still needs to come into play. And it would have been great in this point if there was something that would have been able to bridge over. All right, there's nothing. At this point, what do you do?
So
and I think that it's taking individual decisions as parents now to do something for your children, if you can. And you're on your own.
Stephen in Eldoret, good morning.
Yes, good morning. How are you?
We're fine, thank you.
Yeah, so today I just want to make some contribution. You've spoken about three very important things since in the morning. One, you spoke about the teachers that lost their job, yeah?
Yep.
And these teachers, I'll assume that also they are parents who have children. Now, the second one is them being kicked out of their houses. I'll assume that some of the teachers that are no longer at work also pay rent, and they have been kicked out.
Yeah.
And they have stuck with their children here again. And I like what Sofion said, okay, when he said that education should stop where it was. Okay, and it will continue come next year. So these three, if you combine the three, I think there is no more discussion to what children should do about education. I feel that they should just stay at home, and to teachers, I think what they've been teaching us that we need to be creative. I will assume that they are being creative in seeing other alternatives on how they can survive. But education, I think we should just put it there.
Okay.
And wait come next year.
What would you advise parents to do with the children now that, children are at home? And this is a question that parents are asking themselves. So how do we keep these kids occupied and engaged meaningfully?
Now, okay. But my question will also be, what do the children normally do when they come for breaks during normal years or those other time when they come back
on holiday?
School, what do they normally? Yes, on holidays. Yeah.
Normally you'll find
normal time.
No. Let's just respond to his. Normally you'll find some schools actually organize activities.
Holiday tuition.
Yeah, tuition
Camps.
activities, camps. They organize some activities, and then they leave some time for the parents to actually spend
to enjoy time with the children.
Yes.
There's traveling. You go to your grandparents.
Yes.
So there's all that. All these activities, remember, all of them have been halted.
And they're not possible
It's not possible. It's not possible for you to actually visit your grandparents, the children to visit their grandparents. It's not possible to organize for them a holiday camp. All these things are not possible. So now what?
But let me give you an example of what I've seen here. Okay, there is a mama whom I normally buy food from. You see, so when the children stopped from going to school, she's taken the children to help her in a small hotel where they are selling food. Okay, though she has other employees that she's employed that also selling food, but she's taken them there because there's no other alternative.
So they're spending the day with her at work.
Yeah, they're spending the day with her at work.
Okay.
There are those who will take care of the children at home. I don't know. There are many ways on how they can do it, though it is a bit challenging.
Yeah.
but I know they can come up with a way.
Asante. Thank you, Stephen. Have a good day in Eldoret.
Okay, you two guys, I'm really loving the conversation and you should keep it going.
Thanks, Stephen.
Sana.
Thank you.
I think it is a big concern. I think it's a concern of what parents will do with their children at home, because it is
Calls
a
for
long
creativity.
Yeah,
And it always
calls
happens.
for creativity, but it's a long time for them to be at home
When
at
the
the
December
period where
holidays
they
were
would normally
extended.
be in school.
Remember when the December holidays were extended and
Yeah.
now they became 2 months? And the first thing that you started hearing is parents wondering, so now?
What are we supposed to do?
You see, this is a function that parents had actually abrogated to
school.
the teachers and schools, okay? Now you ask them to take this over, they are not prepared for it at all. So what we hear are the throes of adjusting to, because this is new.
Yeah.
And what makes it difficult is you don't know how long you have to keep adjusting.
True. Coming to the end of the show, today's Proverb CT.
The night has ears. You keep thinking that the things you say in the dark are private. They're not.
Is that the only application of that?
Everything eventually comes to light. That's really what it's saying. Everything, eventually. Even the most secretive, the most private, in the fullness of time, it will come to light.
No secret is secret.
No secret is really ever secret indefinitely.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us today in the Situation Room. Join us again tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Remember, between now and 3 o'clock, you have uninterrupted music, sugar and spice, and everything nice. And then from 3 to 7, what happens, Nduh?
The adults in the room.
No.
Oh, 3 to 7, the Spice Drive with Monique. I thought you said 7 to 10. See, I was already ahead of you.
Yeah.
Right.
So Monique is 3 to
3 to
7.
7.
And then CT, 7 to 10. The adults?
In the room.
The adults will be in the room. See you again tomorrow morning. We'll be in the room. Ours is the Situation Room. CT Muga, Nduh Okoh, and Eric Latiff. Good morning. It's now 10 o'clock.